righty. All right, good afternoon, everybody. We are going to resume today's budget therapy session, beginning with Invest Atlanta. They will be followed by executive offices, and then we will finish up today with the Department of Labor. Doctor, good afternoon. We have your handout, so take it away.
Good afternoon, Council President, Council members. I'm Dr. Eloisa Clementich. I'm the proud President and CEO at Invest Atlanta, which is your economic development authority and economic development arm. Invest Atlanta has 32 key performance indicators. Here are just a few of them and how they align to the Moving Atlanta Forward strategy. As you are well aware, the KPIs are important because they provide measurable benchmarks for tracking progress towards strategic goals, driving clarity, and facilitating alignment. Personally, I watch Invest Atlanta's KPIs because they help me better understand our own performance, identify areas for improvement early, and make data-driven decisions. For 2024, all of Invest Atlanta investments and programming represent $717 million in investment, which leveraged $900 million for total capital of $1.57 billion. And the number that I track very closely is that 1.95 economic impact. Per the Invest Atlanta strategy, we are focused in our disinvested neighborhoods. In fact, 59% of all of our investments fall within those neighborhoods. And if you can see on the map on the screen, those neighborhoods are in the red, orange, and yellow part of our city. And those dots represent all the different type of programs that we were able to invest in for the community throughout 2024. But today, we are here to speak not about all of Invest Atlanta programs, but rather we are here to speak about the city's general fund commitment into economic development. So I've highlighted all of those areas for economic development. Economic development is crucial to the city because it creates more jobs, increases tax revenue, attracts investment, and ultimately improves the quality of life of residents and neighbors and neighborhoods. By fostering a healthy local economy, cities can enhance infrastructure, reduce poverty, and ensure a more sustainable future for our neighborhoods. Here is the economic development team. I am proud to say that Lori Prickett has taken on and is leading this new economic development team, and I'm going to ask her to take over and talk about some of the programs that are funded through your investment.
Good afternoon. I'm honored to stand before you to share how our exceptional economic development team is driving meaningful impact across the city. While we've made great strides, there's still important work ahead. I welcome your continued feedback as we work together to create lasting change to our communities. In saying this is my amazing and exceptional team. Across 18 targeted small business financing programs, Invest Atlanta has disbursed over $14.8 million in direct financial support through grants and loans in calendar year 2024, demonstrating IA's role as a key capital allocator for small business stabilization and growth. A total of 1,845 unique small businesses were supported. This represents a significant year-over-year increase in program participation and reflects the growing demand for access to public financial tools. Invest Atlanta provided over 3,800 hours of technical assistance. Services range from marketing and social media, financial and accounting planning, and business modeling. Equity metrics, 57% of business served were Black-owned, indicating strong performance against racial equity benchmarks. 30% were women-owned, reinforcing the city's support of gender-inclusive entrepreneurship, and 16% operated within disinvested neighborhoods in alignment with our strategic focus on spatial equity and neighborhood-based economic revitalization. While data and metrics are critical, at Invest Atlanta, we believe it's important to connect those members to the real people and stories behind them. So this would be in Council Member Lewis's district, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Travis Fair, owner of ABS Collision and Repair. He received a commercial down payment assistance from us in the amount of $250,000 from Invest Atlanta. Support that's helping him not only attract new customers, but also bring to life the vision he's always had for his businesses. A review of our 18 small business lending programs shows a clear upward trend in loan amounts, with a notable spike during the 2020 pandemic, reflecting an urgent response to business recovery needs and continued year-over-year growth, indicating sustained demand and increased borrower capacity across the city. This slide represents the economic development team's business attraction wins to date. The companies featured here collectively generated 6,131 new jobs and contributed $156 million in capital investment, a strong testament to our team's ability to deliver high-impact results and attract transformative projects to the City of Atlanta. In financial year 2024, the economic development team supported the creation, retention, and expansion of 4,433 full-time jobs across the city. Of these, 1,675 were newly created jobs, and notably, 38% qualified as good jobs. And we define that by a wage range of $40,000 to $70,000 a year with full benefits and long-term stability, advancing our commitment to quality employment and economic mobility in Atlanta residents. I'd like to take a moment to highlight one of our significant wins this year. Cargill, a global leader in food and agriculture, opened a new tech and innovation office right here in Atlanta. This move not only underscores the strength and growth of our technology ecosystem, but also represents a strategic alignment with our broader goals around food access and sustainability. Having an industry leader like Cargill embedded in our city strengthens both our innovation pipeline and our ability to address food equity challenges through collaboration and cross-sector solutions. Advancing toward an Atlanta where everyone has access to fresh, affordable food requires a comprehensive, multifaceted approach. We continue to leverage a variety of tools specifically designed to support the unique needs of both businesses and nonprofits working to improve food access in historically disinvested food desert communities. Our current support mechanisms include technical assistance. We established a strategic partnership with the Independent Grocers Alliance, through which we've supported 20 independent grocers across the city of Atlanta. 75% of these businesses were minority owned, and together they operate across over 107,000 square feet in retail space. You probably asked me, what does that even mean, Lori? What that means is in retail space, it's the equivalent of 2 Publix stores and 5 Aldi locations. Collectively, they serve more than 25,000 customers a week. Then we have our Atlanta Food Access Catalyst Grant. With the staunch commitment by the mayor, this amazing council in the city, we have directly funded projects like the Atlanta Community Food Bank that will be going in District 10, City of Refuge that's already launched in District 3. The Gooder Beyond Edgewood is going to be in June of this year in Council District 5. And Wholesome Wave, Georgia has 2 locations, one already opened in Council District 3 and one soon to be opened in Council District 1 for you, Council Member. So we also have, lastly, our Commercial Property Improvement Grant. With Wells Fargo open for business funding and continued collaboration with Invest Atlanta's community development team, we've provided targeted capital support to grocery initiatives in underserved areas, awarding 15 operators over $750,000 in reimbursable grants, with 50% located in food deserts. Together, these tools are helping us to build a more equitable and resilient food ecosystem for Atlanta. Thanks to the vision of Councilmember Dozier and the support of Mayor Dickens in this council, we are proud to have launched the Atlanta Local Legacy Program, an initiative designed to support legacy businesses through digital transformation, branding, messaging, and targeted grant funding. On April 1st, we celebrated the official launch of the program and welcomed over 100 legacy businesses into the initiative. As part of this effort, we launched the Legacy Empowerment Grant on May 1st, offering up to $5,000 in reimbursable funding to support IT upgrades and digital tools. Additionally, businesses located in a tax allocation district may also qualify for a small business improvement grant of up to $50,000. Now here's for the exciting part. Our local legacy app is live. After today's session, I'd be happy to help you download it and share it with businesses in your district. As some of you may know, I began my journey at Invest Atlanta leading our strategic and international programs. When I first arrived, less than 5% of the economic development pipeline was composed of international projects. Since then, I'm proud to share that we have tripled our international pipeline, positioning Atlanta as a destination of choice for global companies seeking to invest, expand, and innovate. While tariff uncertainty remains a challenge on the global stage, we're actively working to mitigate these risks by elevating the strength of Atlanta's key industries and world-class infrastructure.
So this slide shows our budget trend for the last 4 years, with fiscal year 26 decreasing from 3.5 million to 3 million, in line with current financial conditions. It also shows our headcount breakdown by program area. Next slide, please. This slide shows our year-over-year budget variance, which contemplates a headcount reduction of 3 in fiscal year 26, along with a corresponding SG&A reduction for an overall decrease in our budget ask of $500,000. Next slide, please. This slide shows our summary of operations by major category, which includes business attraction, Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, Mayor's Office of Technology and Innovation, business retention and small business support, and contemplates headcount of 21 full-time employees and a total budget of $3 million. Next slide, please.
This slide outlines our goals for the upcoming fiscal year, driven by a simple mission: to do more, to feed more. Our strategy is focused on clear, measurable deliverables, continuing to attract major grocery chains, opening 2 municipal grocery stores by the end of year 2025. You've seen 25 Peachtree, and you'll see 2080 Campbellton Road. We're continuing to support neighborhood markets through healthy food financing initiatives awarded funds. We're advancing innovative business models that rethink how food access is delivered, and deepening collaboration between the city and the community to explore what more can be done. We're committed to pushing beyond the status quo to build a more equitable, sustainable food access ecosystem for all Atlantans. The economic development team's priorities for moving Atlanta forward are rooted in a continued commitment to supporting small businesses by expanding access to capital, increasing visibility, providing hands-on consultation, and advancing initiatives like the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. We recognize that Invest Atlanta has developed a strong blueprint for partnering with the private sector and delivering relevant programming, and we are eager to explore new opportunities to scale our public and private partnerships. We will also continue to prioritize our key industry clusters, accelerate foreign direct investment, and prepare our business community to welcome the world during the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Our team is thinking ahead, leaning into the future economy through efforts in clean tech, alternative energy, EV infrastructure, and the deployment of supporting funding programs like Brownfields and CPACE. And just a reminder, CPACE is Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Financing. Finally, we remain focused on core mission, delivering high-impact employers, creating, retaining, and expanding quality jobs, and leveraging Atlanta's strategic sites and infrastructure to derive inclusive, sustainable growth.
So let me close with this. Not only do we do this work because of the lives we get to touch and impact, but this work is also delivering to the city. In fact, since I have been with the agency, we have tracked Invest Atlanta's ROI, return on investment. The ROI in economic development measures the efficiency of investments made to stimulate economic activity, such as attracting businesses, creating jobs, and/or improving infrastructure. It's calculated by dividing the net benefits, total benefits minus total cost of an investment by its total cost. A positive ROI indicates that the investments generate more value than its cost. And in fact, for every $1 of general fund dollars that come to Invest Atlanta, we have been able to return to the city $7.2 as a result of the work that we're able to perform. Next slide. This return has been this type of return you will see in jobs, small businesses, opportunity zone, attraction, and retention wins. And they are outlined on the graph before you. These are only the economic development 2024 results, not all of Invest Atlanta. I thank you for the opportunity to serve, and I'd open it up, Chair, to any questions that the committee may have.
All right, that was an award-winning presentation in many respects. Questions or comments? Ms. Collins.
Hi, good to see you guys, and thank you so much for the presentation. Just a quick question in terms of the small business improvement grants or funds. Are those, first question, are those opportunities still available? If so, I think I don't know if I recall how much. And then I remember at one point, a couple of small businesses were just talking about in terms of having issues with access to them. Just wanted to get some more information or dialogue in terms of if those issues have been rectified and if the program is moving, are things moving smoothly now?
Absolutely, the program is going, and so it's actually been brought to the fold by the Legacy Empowerment Grant, because the Legacy Empowerment Grant and the Small Business Improvement Grant. Small Business Improvement Grant is for businesses in TADs of up to $50,000 in reimbursable grants. And so for us, we've been out promoting Legacy Business, but at the same time, we've been also reaching out to those TAD businesses and communicating with them that this grant is available and we can work through the process. Now, what we've tried to do better at is have a stronger presence, not only just in the community, but online, walking through webinars and talking step by step. Because let's be honest, sometimes we go on those websites and it's very confusing and overwhelming. So we've had staff dedicated to doing online webinars and doing the in-person. And what we love is we do that through our hub. So we've hosted sessions at Pittsburgh Yards. We've hosted sessions at the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs. But Councilmember, thank you for that comment, and we're going to continue to get the word out for these grants. We just want to make them available to all.
Follow-up question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was
Doc.
just going to say, and if a business, you would have to be a legacy business to qualify. If you're not a legacy business because you haven't been in business for 30 years, then we would offer other type of tools, from technical assistance to small business lending. So we really try to just tell business, call us, give us your address. We'll try to figure out what tools we have available to you.
Yep, that's great. I appreciate that. So just to be clear, the Small Business Improvement Grant, you still have to qualify in a legacy capacity.
Right, yes.
And then the legacy capacity, the new opportunity, legacy business opportunity focuses, what is the main difference between the two?
The Legacy Empowerment Grant is up to $5,000.
Got you.
And the Small Business Improvement Grant is 50. Yes.
And TAD, and 50
And in TAD.
TAD in
Yeah.
the TAD base. Okay,
Yes,
great.
Councilmember.
Thank you so much. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
Well, again, thank you all so much for being here. I just want to make sure that you all understand how thankful I am for the work that you've done over the last 3 years or so in District 11 in particular. Really transformational in different areas, especially with food, the fresh food access, how you quickly were open to legislation to pull that funding in and actually put it in the community with the Nourish and Bloom on Cascade, with the Gooder Grocery Store at William Walker Rec, and now we have also on Campbellton Road the Azalea Market coming. I've been preaching about a municipal market for a while now, so we've done field trips to Trilith, we've done field trips to Carver, and it's actually happening. So I appreciate the work that you've done. I also receive regularly different testimonials from those that have really benefited from the grants or forgivable loans that we're offering because of situations. Mauro over at the Fresh Food Market
Yes.
that's on Campbellton talks about all of his new, what are those, commercial
Freezers.
refrigerators and freezers. And his business has really changed because of that. I was at the Hoosier United Methodist Church the other day, and
Yes.
the Stretch Theory there, that gym is, well, I wouldn't even call it a gym, I'll call it a studio because it is really beautiful. He's
Yeah.
really, the business is really taken off because of that new placement. And he keeps talking about Invest Atlanta. And I remember introducing you all to him and asking you to please help. You came to my community meeting because I asked you to because of the double detour. And it was really killing the business node at the commercial point where Cascade meets Beecher. Really killing it. And you really help people throughout all of those businesses, you help them throughout that entire process, and you're still in it with them until that whole project is completed. So what I'm saying is, I finally feel like the work that we've worked on for since I've been here 2018, shopping Campbellton Road with you and talking about the density that was needed around Greenbrier, I really feel like we're hitting those marks. Where we've laid that foundation and people are actually believing in what you can do in their particular areas, and that you're following through. So I want to thank you for that. We have a whole lot more work to do, but I certainly don't feel like I'm throwing, just suggestions and requests out in the wind and it's not being heard or acted upon. I feel like we've all rolled up our sleeves and really are meeting those business owners where they are. And I appreciate that. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Ms.
Thank you.
Bakhtiari.
Hey, team. Hey. Thank you all. I actually don't have to ask a lot of budget questions because my team has been meeting pretty regularly with you, and I have to really commend Alex Fennell on my team for the work that she's been doing for y'all, and thanking you all for remaining so accessible. I actually just wanted to say, well, thank you for all the small business work, for the work with our seniors, for the amount of, I would say, tax forgiveness and everything that you are helping them with. And I really have to thank Lori and Evan for the work tackling food apartheid in Sweet Auburn. I know we have that opening this summer in June. Not on camera. I can see myself on camera, so I'm not going to celebrate as much as I want to. But that's huge, and I believe Evan and I have another place for us to look at in East Atlanta. But I just wanted to say thank you because we have over 1,000 seniors that live in walking distance of that location. And we know during the pandemic, a lot of our senior locations cut transportation and have not brought it back. So very grateful to you all and the work you are helping us do, especially in Sweet Auburn and especially with supportive housing in my district. So very grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Others? Mr. Shipman.
First of all, I want to thank Councilmember Hillis for being here on his birthday and celebrating with all of us in budget hearings. And yes, it's my birthday too, so we both are here on our birthdays, celebrating in the best way we know how. I want to ask a couple of macro questions and a couple of micro questions. Macro question, we obviously know that economic conditions are uncertain. No one can predict the future, but one of the things that seems to be a theme is that small businesses are likely to be under a lot of pressure because a lot of small businesses, especially retailers, import products. Those import product prices may go up. Supply chain disruption may occur like it did during COVID. And so most economists are saying that's an area of the economy that is going to be disproportionately hit if there's a downturn. My question is, we've been through this before, obviously with COVID. Can you talk a little bit about the kinds of responses that you might envision if we see particular pressure on our small retailers because of macro conditions?
So the first one will be, I think, as you denote, is access to product and still having it at a competitive price that they can afford, that the end buyer can afford. So I think one of the things that we've been already starting to think through is, could we create a loan program which would create the ability to, for no payments, let's say for 6 months, the first 6 months, to get them over to help with cash flow, because the issue is cash flow is starting to get really tight. So that is one tool we have. As Lori mentioned, we have 18 different loan products, so it allows us to be able to create something that is responsive. The second thing is that we've really been trying to fundraise now for is technical assistance is going to be key. Not only for, we want to ensure, because we did this with marketing where in COVID, we wanted to ensure businesses had their website up and could, market their product in different ways. But this technical assistance has proved really to move the needle for our small businesses, because it's creating efficiencies, creating pathways in terms of financial impacts and how they control their supplies, their suppliers. That's the second one. The third one I would have to say is that, really leaning on Lori and Evan, is that we've been trying to think through is there an opportunity for us to create a distribution center, a hub, because a lot of these small businesses are buying in smaller bulk, which means it's higher or smaller quantities. It's a higher expense. If we could somehow create a collaborative where you could join and then buy in a bulk. So we've started it with the grocery. We're now expanding it to restaurants, because we had heard some restaurants are going to Kroger to buy their raw products and bringing them back. This high cost. So we've really strategically started to think about, how do I lower costs? So these are kind of the different things that we're looking into right now.
Full. Second macro question, have you seen any particular, given the federal freezes of dollars for certain programs and or the in essence cuts of certain departments that we've seen already through the DOGE efforts, have you seen any of the core federal programs that you depend on or that you have used significantly in the past be impacted thus far?
Yes, we have. First is the EDA, the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration has seen cuts, and so they're slowing down on their ability. Now, we haven't got direct grants from them, but we're seeing that slow down. In fact, I'm getting a lot of calls from my ex-colleagues. In the other departments, I think HUD has been another department where we've seen a slowdown, again, laying off folks, so that it's just taking longer to get back to us. I think that's one. And in our particular case, Department of Transportation, again, the same thing, cuts in personnel, which this means slower turnaround on the other end. So no direct funding to us per se, directly to Invest, usually would come through the state, city, and to Invest Atlanta, but we are seeing these departments slow down a little bit.
That's helpful. Third, I noticed in your budget that the headcount reduction is around WEI and MOTI. Can you talk a little bit about that, particularly why in that area as opposed to some of the others? Is that just a general fund and you're moving funds from different sources, or is that a real headcount reduction, and why in that area?
No, the reduction hasn't quite been determined where it's going to be exactly. In that slide, I don't think it's.
Yeah, misread the slide. It just had
It just had the
I see.
head count.
I understand.
count.
Got it. My
It's not-
apologies.
Yeah, it's not in that area.
So you don't know exactly, going from 3.5 to 3, you don't know exactly where that's going to be
Not.
yet?
It's a tough one for us. So no,
Okay.
I don't.
I guess the broader question there is, obviously, we've heard a lot of the federal government around wanting to cut DE&I the way that they define it. Do you feel like that we can maintain the focuses that we've had on minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses at the city level, or do you see some potential federal contentiousness about us continuing our programs?
So I've been talking to colleagues throughout the nation, and we're hearing that women is safe, like they're really not going after women. We'll see, but that's what we're hearing. Our commitment to minority businesses is part of our values. It's who we are. I think it's who the mayor is. It's who the council, I don't want to speak for you, but it's who I hear. And so we will continue to focus on minority. What I think is important for us, if you remember at the very beginning, I showed you disinvested neighborhoods. The disinvested neighborhoods are based on 32 federal metrics, from access to vehicle, disposable income, poverty rates. So these are all public information. So it allows us to focus in on that area without specifically saying what minority group, but we all know who lives south of I-20. And so I think it's a way for us to continue to work on our disinvested neighborhoods in a way that's based on federal metrics that are published and that are anybody can take a look at.
That's helpful. Yeah, I would underline, I think that I don't want to speak for everybody on the council, but I think I can speak for everybody on the council that we absolutely are committed to minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, that legacy,
And
et
it's
cetera.
fundamentally who we are
Right.
at Invest Atlanta. So
And it's a competitive advantage that I would argue that Atlanta has over a lot of other cities.
luckily, I have to say that this invested neighborhood was thanks to Roz. If you're hearing Roz, Rosalind Renewal was really the one who said, we got to figure out a way that can sustain the test of time. We never thought we would be in this position, but we really feel confident on that metric.
You mentioned in one of your bullet points under industry cluster focuses World Cup Legacy Business Program activation. Obviously, World Cup is a very big deal. We've seen it in other parts of the budget. Do you have, and it may not be in your general fund, it may be from some other source, but do you have specific parts of your FY26 budget where you're spending money on World Cup-oriented activations, and could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're going to focus on downtown. So we're really leveraging what is the West Side TAD and the East Side TAD to provide support to businesses, which are at the heart of the World Cup. That's where everybody's going to congregate. We have several key projects there as well. 143, we're going to activate and stabilize as well that will help for World Cup. So we also have an effort through Lori to work on technical assistance for small businesses. We've started an effort to work through our business associations. Thanks to your allocation of business associations, we have great contacts now, and we're getting the information out. We're working very closely with Showcase Atlanta, because that is the #1 issue, is how do I find out information, showing parties, et cetera. So those are things that we're doing. So yes, we have a direct allocation, but I would say in terms of people, now what we're thinking about is how do we use programming, and so we also want to do technical assistance, and we're working with Showcase and the mayor to try to find and fund a technical assistance program.
And then last question, as you see trends moving, and what do you see as, obviously Atlanta has had a lot of tailwinds when it comes to economic development, good business climate, great educational system, producing incredible number of educated young people, an incredibly diverse workforce, a balanced economy. But I'm just curious what you see at the moment, given some of the things that we see, like AI coming online and some other things, and then some parts of the economy under pressure. What do you see as sort of our, Atlanta's trends at the moment when it comes to economic development, where we have some advantages going forward? Is it still the same places, or are there some new things?
What I find really exciting, and I'll let Lori chime in as well, what I find really exciting is the research and development. If you draw a circle around what is Tech Square, we have a concentration of about 32, well, maybe in the next couple of days, 35 research and development, corporate research and development centers, all coming to that part, wanting to be within the Georgia Tech, AUC Center schools, and SCAD, because they need the arts, the engineer, and the diversity. They need it all centered. And I think that's a uniqueness that you do not see in other parts of the nation. So it's really bringing other companies to look at Atlanta. And we think it's the first step, because they'll come to open up an R&D, and then they see how successful it is, and then more likely to then eventually open up either their headquarters or a subsidiary or something and continue their investment. I really think that is what's exciting in my perspective. I don't know, Lori, if you wanted to.
No, I would actually, because there's a couple of things I do want to make. everyone aware of the pulse of attraction coming in. So number one, it's still wonderful to have Atlanta have a low cost of living. So that's a major attraction. Number two, I think what I'm seeing is a lot more on technology, but let's stop talking so broadly about how Atlanta's leading the way in technology. So you've talked about AI, but for me, I'm thinking of things like sports tech that's really starting to show, especially with having major sporting events coming here as well. But we're talking clean tech, we're talking ag tech. And here's another one that nobody likes to pay attention to, ed tech, educational technology. So we're really showing a strong ecosystem. You'll see in other cities, there is an ecosystem for what you're very good at. What I see in Atlanta is we've got ecosystems for everything. You want to bring an EV company here, we've got an ecosystem for that. If you're a fintech company coming from abroad, we've got the strongest fintech ecosystem in the country. That's what it is. We've got a strong startup community and a tech community here, which is very important as well. And here's the one underlining that everybody tends to overlook. Creative industries is our power. That is what we do here, and we've got a strong ecosystem. So we're continuing to build, we're continuing to really have these attraction projects build and strengthen those ecosystems so they sustain themselves. And we not only are just a leader in one thing, we're a leader in a lot.
That's super helpful. Let me just put you on the spot for one more question. I know that we have long had a very good relationship with the economic development folks at the state. It's one of the places where the state and the city have worked extremely well together, even beyond just when we have good relationships between mayor and governor. What are one or two things that the state at this point could really help us with, or places they could either do more or things that they could do new that would really help us in this moment? And the reason I ask specifically is because the federal government, it feels like, is going to be pulling back from its investments in cities. We've had a kind of a golden age over the last few years where the federal government has been putting a lot into cities. It feels like the federal government is going to be putting less into cities. So the question is, well, what can the state really do to help us sustain our success?
I'd say one of the things that the state can do and continue to do is always listen. We always come up with these new ideas and creative ideas, and I just appreciate the commissioners on both sides that are continuing listening. Now, there'll be times they'll say, hey, that one's a good idea, but no. But they listen, and I'm very open to that. So I think that I would have to say that the state has been very responsive and listening. I'm not quite sure there's one thing I would pinpoint that they should do, but they've been very receptive, and when they can, they lean in.
I can add a bit to that as well. I think it's not what they can do better, what they can continue to sustain. So for us, we have a wonderful relationship with the Georgia Department for Economic Development. And for me, we work projects together and we layer our incentives together, stronger together than separately. And that's one thing I really appreciate about my state colleagues. Also, another thing is the Department for Community Affairs, DCA, is really a huge ally for us, especially with opportunity zones. That is the most underutilized incentive we have here. And I can assure you, my team are going out. This is a priority area for small businesses and all kinds of businesses to understand the value of tax credits and what that means for those individuals. So I hope we have your support there, because I'm going out and we're all going out trying to speak with companies. But we have a really good relationship with the state there. They're very responsive. They've updated their website, so it's made it much more user-friendly for us. So for me, it's all about sustainability of that relationship and openness.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I yield.
Thank you. Ms. Collins.
As a matter of fact, I think Doc answered my question a while ago, so thank you so much. I do have one last question, so sorry. So the budget piece, I mean, we're in budget conversations here. I really love the way you laid out the impact. Just remind me, how much does the city and, you know, the overarching picture of Invest Atlanta budget, and how much is it of the City of Atlanta's budget general fund goes to the efforts that you guys are pursuing?
So of the economic development efforts, it's 100%, right? But of the total Invest Atlanta, it's around 30%.
Okay, say that last part again.
30%?
30%? And what dollar amount is that?
So that's 9 million, yeah.
Okay, so City of Atlanta, through our general fund, we invest about $9 million a year.
No, 3 million,
No,
Three.
3 million.
Yes,
And then
okay.
the total Invest Atlanta budget is around 9
9
million.
million.
Okay, I'm sorry.
1/3, that's okay.
Yeah,
Okay, all right, thank you.
okay.
Sorry, I had a couple other questions that I had forgotten to ask about. I was hoping you could kind of dive into the status of 2 Peachtree and where we are in what phase, and if cost projections have gone up for any reason. It's been a while since I think we've done our walkthrough or received a larger update.
I'm happy to provide a larger update. It's
Yeah.
probably a deeper conversation, but if I just had to overall, I would
Yes.
tell you that we are still on schedule to break ground on phase 1 of the 2 Peachtree project, which would be across the street on 1 Peachtree, which is there in the atrium area. That will be sometime in Q3, so we're going to break ground on that first phase. And yes, I will tell you that cost escalations have gone up on 2 Peachtree. We're not sure what they are yet because tariffs, are they coming, are they not? So we revise the budget, then we hear the tariffs are not coming in, then we revise it. So now we've kind of just told, but every project I'm on is in the exact same situation because of it.
And so given that, I know that with, the Stitch funding is quite different and far more secure, but where are we with 2 Peachtree with the cuts that we predict coming down? I mean, it's obviously hard to do projections for the reasons that you just stated, but in terms of funding long-term, we're talking about a lot of pieces throughout downtown and investing a good deal of money there. Where is 2 Peachtree going to continue to source their funds from during the
We're
next?
very optimistic. The way we stand today, we feel very optimistic we'll be able to close on a Department of Transportation loan that will provide us low cost of financing. We expect that to happen Q1, maybe beginning Q2, exactly. That's why all these, your question, Council President, about Department of Transportation and cuts, that's why we see them, they're there, they're not. Now, I think the team is back in place, so we're back on ground. So I suspect there are several gaps, but we're filling them with low-income housing tax credits. I've seen some proposals, maybe that goes away too, so I'm not quite sure, but let's just assume all of that happens, and we feel pretty optimistic we're gonna be able to, we are gonna close this gap. But again, we're just moving along. We feel excited that Department of Transportation loan is moving forward. We have the low-income housing tax credits. We may have to do some fundraising with the nonprofit community, which have been amenable to hearing us and participating. So it's gonna require some work, but I think the developer and Invest Atlanta are optimistic about this project.
Happy to hear that. Thank you. And then I've asked about this in the past, but I can't remember the answer. Could you define minority when you refer to businesses? Because oftentimes the pushback I hear is putting women, people of color, and LGBTQ community into one bucket oftentimes leads to one minority group overtaking another rather than them having separations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for most of our programs, we open, other than the Women's Entrepreneur Initiative that we require be a woman owner, all of our other tools are open to anybody who applies to them. So we've never, none of our tools have been dependent on how we define it. Now, what we do at the end, though, is we ask you, how would you like to be identified? And they self-choose so that then I can report it to you that X percentage of our businesses are women or Black or LGBT. We let them decide how they want to identify. But all of the tools are open to everyone except the Women's Entrepreneur Initiative.
Understood. I'll ask my question more directly and less politically polite. Do white women overtake Black business owners? Like, is there oftentimes the response I've heard from Black entrepreneurs in my district is that they're oftentimes competing with white women because they also fall within the minority category, and that there are more resources readily available than Black minority business owners are receiving. So I was asking if there's a differentiation, if there is one that is overshadowing the other in a pool of resources, or if they're separate categories when it comes to small businesses especially.
So, okay, just want to make sure I got this, but again, our tools are open to everyone. The only limit is the women's entrepreneurship. They have to be women. Now, I would have to look at the statistics about how many breakdown of women, but we've never, I don't think we've ever broken it down to to that level, but I will check with Jen. But again, I wouldn't say that any of our resources, we don't have enough for one or the other. We will not turn you down because of that, whether you're a white woman or a black woman. We would, but more so would be your credit score, right? That we would look at, like if you had 200 credit score or something like that.
And the reason the reason I asked was not for pitting, but to piggyback off of Council President was asking, what we saw during the pandemic and during recessions was a higher, obviously, shutdown of certain minority businesses over another. So in my district, especially, concern is empty storefronts.
Yeah.
And an overshadowing of chains and further displacement of our working community. But I'm happy to hear, thank you for answering my poorly worded question. And then there was something you were talking about wanting to have tourism downtown, which is great, but has there a plan to drive out tourism into some of our neighborhoods to better assist with economic distribution throughout the city? Rather, I'm glad that they'll be downtown, but there are incredible small businesses in Councilmember Shook's district, Councilmember Wan's district, Councilmember Overstreet, my district. So wanting to make sure that we're also trying to use our tourism dollars effectively.
So two things that I think are important. First is the local legacy is going to attract, that platform that Lori talked about will attract citywide. So we're going to attract, hey, where's the best flowers, or where's my women-owned flower shops, et cetera. I can go out and find them. If we're talking specifically about where I think your question, Zini, on the tourism was World Cup initiatives, we are working specifically with Showcase, who wants to do events outside of downtown to really engage the community, do exactly what you had just talked about, is how do we get different parts of the city to engage and participate and recognize what soccer means in this particular case. And so there is a specific effort to ensure we're doing events outside of downtown and other parts of the city to include the community.
And I do want to take a step and say we're being actually very intentional. We're actually looking at sites, activation sites, where we can do things as well. So look, World Cup cannot happen to us, it's got to happen with us. And just so you know, I mean, I appreciate you all saying this. I've been hosting small business webinars in all of your districts, and I've been doing that for the past month and a half now. And every business said, what are we doing for World Cup? I want them to come to and I'm going, so number one, I'm going to sign you up for an app. Number two, I want to come out to the district and you show me where some activation sites are. So we've got a list of activation sites that we're sharing with Showcase in Atlanta. So just know Showcase Atlanta, they're also working with ACVB, the Beltline. We're all collectively, holistically looking at World Cup. But I can tell you, this team, we are being very intentional about how we help all of our businesses thrive during this time. Got some cool ideas too, so.
I appreciate it. Mr. Chair, I yield.
Well, thank you. I have several potentially random questions. What percentage of businesses, I'll either here or in Georgia, if you happen to know, are female-owned?
I'd have to pull that. I don't think I know. I don't know it off the top, Councilmember.
I know you defined what a good job is, but it didn't take, so could you repeat that?
Of course, it's 40 to 70,000 a year with full benefits.
Okay. Is there any way y'all can benchmark yourself against peers, or are the variables just too great?
We do benchmark ourselves, because I'm constantly trying to think through what programs and initiatives we're not offering that we could offer. So yes, I do it in different areas. So usually I'll benchmark, for example, our homeownership side. I'll benchmark what we're doing on economic development efforts, different strategies. And then some of that I belong to the International Economic Development Council. So we now have a small group of World Cup cities on the economic development side where we get together and are sharing best practices.
I've seen what some peer cities spend, and it's like 4x, what we've given you.
Yes,
and so
they have a revenue stream that relies on either tourism or parking. They get a certain revenue stream from the city. So,
yeah.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Which is another way to say, we appreciate all that you are able to do. How much of your efforts go into keeping local businesses from being lured elsewhere?
So I would say, and I'll let Lori chime in on this, We used to spend a lot more time on attraction in terms of people. When I first arrived at Invest Atlanta, we had about a team of 3, 4 at any one time doing attraction. We started to see that change from big companies to much smaller companies. So we still have the same number of companies we're working with, but the deals are much smaller. So they still require the same amount of work, but they're much smaller. So what we've done too now is we've shifted some of the resources from the attraction side, council member, to the retention side. And we've done that in specific because we have a lot of needs right now for small businesses to prepare for big events like what we have with World Cup. So we have a lot of local initiatives, legacy business, World Cup, fresh food. And so we've been spending more time on that side of the house. What's great about Invest is that we're nimble enough to be able to shift and move as that demand comes. But most of the time now is you'll see a greater on retention, expansion of current businesses, and also fresh food. That's Evan's whole job.
And the only thing I would add in there, there's a term that's often used, it's called aftercare. And I think that feeds into our business retention and expansion, because for us, when you attract a project, it's like, okay, you're here now, over to you. That's not how it works at Invest Atlanta. You're here, we're gonna continue to grow you and build you. And we're seeing a lot of our businesses that we attracted that just came with 3 members of staff are now building to 10 to 15 to 20, even to 50. So for us, the aftercare of what we do at Invest Atlanta and how we leverage things like, did you know you're in an opportunity zone? Did you know this grant is available? Did you know that? That really further invests in our commitment to having those businesses stay in Atlanta and grow in Atlanta.
Anything else? All right, that being the case, thank you again for all that you do for the city. We appreciate y'all. And we have 6 minutes until the expected arrival of the executive crew. So thank you. All right, good afternoon. You have any empty seat? Are we waiting on someone?
Literally just stepped on the other side of that door.
You went to the restaurant.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. This is the executive offices. We are on page 137 in your hymnal. And sir, if you're ready, please introduce yourself and take it away.
All right, good afternoon, Council. It's good to see all of you today. And a very special day it is. That is Council President Shipman and Council Member Hillis' birthday. Happy birthday, gentlemen. You guys did not take vacation on your birthdays. You could have come, no better place to be than right here. Well, we thank you all for your partnership, your leadership. The work that you've done across this city has been phenomenal. It doesn't go unnoticed by myself and my team, the senior leadership team, all of the cabinet, and all of the men and women that work for the city of Atlanta. We thank you. We know that you guys have been going through budgets for the past couple of weeks on our way to our June 2nd budget adoption. So thank you for your steadfastness and your leadership. I am here today with my you all know them all, my senior leadership team. To my left is COO LaShondra Burks. To my right is Chief of Staff Odie Donald. To LaShondra Burks' left is our Senior Advisor and Chief Policy Officer, Courtney English. And to Odie Donald's right is our Chief Strategy Officer, Peter Amon. And behind us is a whole team of dedicated men and women that work for the city of Atlanta and the mayor's office, and you know most of them quite well because they work with you every day and night sometimes in the community. So thank you all team members for being here, and to all the ones watching on our closed caption television. We want to present our FY 2026 proposed budget to you at this time. I know you have received it, and we want to walk you through it. Today's agenda is 7 items plus a question and answer period. The first thing is always to go over our mission statement. And then I want to go over how we got started as 2022, FY 2025 in review, our proposed budget for 26, and then projected 26 activities. And then just talk about the group project and the whole of government strategy as we wrap up, and then be prepared to take questions. So let's get started. We know the mission statement that has driven us for the past almost 4 years is a city of safe, healthy, connected neighborhoods with an expansive culture of equity, empowering upward mobility and full participation of all residents, and embracing our youth development and an innovative, dependable government moving Atlanta forward together. I think that you can see in that mission statement that we have together for the past, like I said, almost 4 years now, 3.5 years, we have been working towards all of that. This is our 4th budget with this council. All of us came in together. In 2021 was our election cycle. In 2022, we were all inaugurated together. And so we got started together. And so I want to kind of take us a step back to remind us, as we're going into our 4th budget, how we started and how we overcame some of those challenges. We started, COVID was happening, and we were returning from COVID, and so we had to adapt to post-COVID reality. We had to social distance. We were wearing masks in our first set of meetings, and so were our employees. Our employee safety was at our highest concern, to making sure that as they returned to work, as they were working in close quarters with one another, as they were going about serving the citizens, how would they do that post, or really kind of end of pandemic and then post-pandemic. And then also the local economy has some challenges because of the pandemic. Then we also had a spike in violent crime. As you remember, 2020 and 2021 were remarkably high years in crime, and we had to provide for the safety of our city. We had gang activity, we had robberies, we had violent crime, homicides were high in 2020, 2021, and even the beginning of 2022. Infrastructure challenges, we had long-standing issues related to safe drinking water, roads, bridges, even just our our infrastructure and technology and things of that nature. We needed to really come in here and get some things going. And then there were challenges to what we call our corporate boundaries. We were facing a movement where some people in parts of our city wanted to leave the city. And we had a potential state takeover of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. So things that we have long had as one Atlanta was being jeopardized. It was at risk. There was a potential for us to have a city divided, with Buckhead being separated from the city, and maybe even our airport being separated from us. We had to come in and get things done. My approach is the group project, and I've reiterated that more than 1,000 times. This is a group project, and so we use the whole of government as our approach to get things done. I'm wearing a pen right now that says the group project. Atlanta is a group project. And so a few of those key things were to focus on talent, prioritizing the retention of frontline employees and public safety, and the recruitment of top talent throughout the city of Atlanta. We needed to get the talent to be able to meet the needs of the public that they have been asking us for. We had to make targeted investments to unlock critical investments in public safety, in our youth investments, into our youth services, homelessness, affordable housing, our parks, fire equipment, fire and police equipment also all needed to be enhanced, and just overall our infrastructure. We had to make targeted investments. And then we had to supercharge our government and focused on improved service delivery across departments. Trash pickup was inconsistent as we came in, and a various number of other things that people depended on were not at the level that we are now and at the level that people were hoping it would be. Enhancing crisis response. We had to centralize our emergency response to address challenges, whether that's with water or weather or even crime. We have now stood up a very good apparatus for how we respond to emergencies, because as a large metropolitan city, we do have emergencies that occur. Just to remind you all, when we started as this session of the City Council and Mayor, we were the 8th largest metropolitan area in the nation. At this time, we are the 6th largest metropolitan area in the nation. So since you sat in those seats and I've sat in this seat, we have leapfrogged up to be very, very, one of the largest places. And we still have about 2 million more people that's destined to come to this city over the next 25 years. So our emergency response network and system has been put in place, whether that's through our Joint Operations Center, whether that's through our Teams meetings, whether that's through our comms and outreach. We are ready, and therefore no snow Mageddon. So where we are now, I don't want to fast forward past 2022, past 2023, and past 2024, but we did a lot of things together. If you look up on this screen, you will see accolades over that time that really reflect how we have worked well together. We've been listed as the best place to live in a number of categories and magazines. We're top city for parks. Our park score was way below 25, and now we're 25th, and I got a hint that when it comes out real soon about our 2025 numbers will be even higher. We're the most educated city in America. We're the best city to start a career. We're the best city to start a business. the best summer travel destination, top global real estate investment destination, a top convention city. We were listed as the most livable city, most affordable tech hub, best city for young adults, a top market to watch, #1 smartest city, best city, #1 city for film and entertainment, and of course, our cultural excellence. As you see, now we have everything from James Beard and Michelin-rated restaurants in our city. And last but not least, what goes without saying is we still have the world's busiest and most efficient airport that has also been rated as the best in customer service. And that's managed by this senior leadership team as well as the city council members. And this is a group project. And so we ought to be proud of ourselves as we have had to deal with the challenges that we were facing when we first came in to get us to this point. Most people would not believe if we were to say in 3 years, we would go from where we were to where we are today. So I thank you for your partnership in that, and our fiscal year budgets each year has reflected our goals at getting towards these outcomes, and we have delivered for the people of Atlanta. Now we will take a look back at last year, and we will have our Chief Operating Officer, Sandra Burks, take us on a year in review.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, President Shipman, Chair Shook, and members of the City Council. It is an honor for me to go over some of our FY25 highlights for today. As we know, you have seen in just about every presentation that has come before you today, everything we do in every department, including ours especially, is focused around the mayor's 4 pillars. One safe city, and when we say one safe city, that is policing and non-policing. A city that is an opportunity for all, a city built for the future, and one around effective and ethical government. So just a little bit of highlights on each one of those, and some of these.
You were able to change the number, so you got to say it.
Okay, I will. Yeah. All right, one of the things that, some of what you will hear today is pretty much a lot of what you may have heard from some other departments. One, starting with One Safe City, our crime reduction. Now, we had a change in this because every day the mayor still meets with the chief of police, and we go intensely into overnight crimes and how we prevent crimes in the city of Atlanta, from gangs to drugs to crime. And what you will see right here on your screen, it says homicides have decreased by 26% since 2022. On our call this morning, we were at 31 homicides this year and compared to 66 homicides in 2022. So since 2022, our homicides have decreased by 53%. Our 911 calls have decreased. The wait times on 911 by 58%. You've heard a little bit about that. What we know is that is our first entry point. When someone dials 911, they are expecting to hear a voice on the other side because their emergency is their emergency right then. Officially open, many of you have joined us and have been supportive with us through this entire process. We finally opened the Public Safety Training Center, and I can tell you to see the activity over there every day, to hear about it, to see pictures of it is absolutely amazing. To see all of our public safety personnel having an opportunity for the first time ever in this city to train together. They respond together, but they had never trained together. So that is an exciting part, and we expect to see greater results in our city when people show up to houses, businesses, or wherever they receive a 911 call from. Our diverse approach, we talked about public safety being police and non-policing strategies. We've expanded diversion. Our Center for Diversion Services that we partner with Fulton County on opened in January of this year. And so far, we have received almost 400 diversions from the Atlanta Police Department, meaning that the people who have gone to the Center for Diversion Services have not gone to someone's jail. And the supportive and wraparound services that they are receiving is phenomenal, led by Grady Hospital. Our nightlife, you've heard about nightlife. These are other ways that we work with our nightlife industry, trainings with our bartenders. We like to get right to the people who are in our nightlife institutions to do training around how de-escalation, anything that we can do to prevent crimes in our nightclubs. You've heard the mayor talk, Year of the Youth. It started out, first year was Year of the Youth, and then the second year was Year of the Youth, and then he finally just said, every year that I'm mayor would be the Year of the Youth. And so we have seen violent crimes go down in our youth based on certain activities that we have for them. And our violence reduction efforts. A lot of times we don't talk about our Mayor's Office of Violence Reduction that came as a result of high crime. Just the other day, I was talking to one of the team members, and we talked about, we have contractors who are out watching kids, engaging with our youth as they walk from the trains, from Washington High School to the train station to get home. A lot of fights happen, a lot of stabbings happening between our youth. Whatever happens in school, they bring it out into the streets. And it is absolutely amazing. The principals have been talking about, just by having our violence interrupters out on the streets, engaging with our youth, giving them snacks, giving them water, walking with them to the train station, those non-policing efforts that have brought down some of our violent crimes. And then some of our new initiatives. You've heard Chief Sherbaum just last week talk about our CARES unit and how well that is going. Many of you have been complimentary of the look in the new vehicles and how they engage with our citizens. Another thing that came up was make the right call. One of the things that help our 911 calls get a fewer waiting times is making sure people knew when to call 311 versus when to call 911. And that is very important, because sometimes people can tie up the 911 line when it's really a 311 call. So that was an important initiative to us. Also, No More campaign. As a part of the daily calls with the chief, one of the things that the mayor saw, that many of our homicides and violent crimes were done because of domestic violence. And so we work very closely with our Mayor's Office of Violence Reduction, our communications team, to do a No More campaign. Many of you participated in that as well. And as a result, we have seen the cause of domestic violence around crime go down drastically. A little bit about a city of opportunity for all. When we say all, we mean all. All means all. From the cradle to as long as you can receive some type of service from the city of Atlanta. From investing in our homeless, our Mayor's Youth Scholarship Program, small business grants and loans, arts groups grants, senior property tax increase offsets, youth workforce, new affordable housing units. You've heard the mayor say 20,000, 20,000, 20,000. And in just these 3 years, he has been able to reach 11,000 new affordable housing units. I do want to talk a little bit just about my experience in the youth and workforce training. When I was in Parks and Recreation and we hired youth, the stories that we heard behind youth having opportunities to work during the summer were just heart-wrenching. There was no amount of money, no amount of time that we could have put into that to make sure that our youth are taken care of. Many of our youth are taking care of their younger siblings. They're helping their mothers in single-family households. So to be able to have 14,000 youth participate in workforce programs over the last 3 years has been a remarkable experience for our youth and for us, as a matter of fact. We've learned just as much from them as they have learned from us. A city built for the future. From sustainability to infrastructure to investing in our community to preserving our property tax relief. You can see all the investments that have gone on here, $17.2 million. Even in our infrastructure, we've resurfaced 19 lanes and 5.8 centimeter miles, repaired over 13,000 potholes. The mayor often jokes with former Mayor Shirley Franklin, who started the Pothole Posse, that he's been able to fill more potholes than she has been able to fill. But really keeping track of how we are improving on our infrastructure. And all that you see here as it relates to a city built for the future are only to name a few. Our last pillar, effective and ethical government. You've heard us talk about it. Thanks to our finance department, thanks to the city council, AAA rating, clean audits. The mayor's office in the history of the city of Atlanta has had the highest ethics disclosure compliance this year as we could turn in all of our disclosure forms. Our employee bill of rights, you've heard from our employees, our unions who asked for this. They wanted to know, what are their rights? What rights do we have as city employees? So we have instituted the Employee Bill of Rights. We did a Fare Free MARTA pilot program with some of our employees and have a lot of good stories to tell about that. And we've been working to address urban blight. So again, just a few as it relates to effective and ethical government. And at this time, to get into the heart of our budget, I'll turn it over to our Chief of Staff, Mr. Odie Donald.
All right. Well, again, good morning, Council. Always thankful to come before you on behalf of the mayor and, kind of tell our good news and really dissect where our budget is and how we plan to move forward in FY26. And looking at our position count by fund, we're up to 234 authorized employees through the general fund, a total of 249. Those additional non-general fund employees are for contract compliance roles that had been unfilled but now are in the process of doing so, which is a really big deal for us, making sure that we're in line with, the history and legacy associated with ensuring contract compliance, especially across water and wastewater and our aviation funds. What you'll also see is from FY25, that's an increase of 3 positions, which is about 1% growth. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't change the slide. All right. Next slide, when you look at our proposed FY26 budget, what you will see first is that FY26 is 8% below the FY25 projections for our actuals. That is, the mayor gave everyone, all departments, the requirement that we cut by 5% on our adopted budget. And so it's only right that the executive offices lead the way in that. In addition to that, you'll also see that our FY26 projections are actually below our FY24 actual. So we are moving forward with that 8% overall cut. And what you will see is that we made some adjustments throughout our budget. One of those areas is making sure that we right size the purchase contract services. So back in FY24, contract services were around close to about $8 million, about $7.5 million. In FY26, we propose about $4.1 million. You will see that we've moved some of those citywide contracts, some of them which you're very familiar with, the Atlanta Regional Commission, our animal services, as well as some of our security services contracts that are actually citywide. We've moved those out of the executive offices into the appropriate places. In addition to that, when you look at our personnel services, you'll notice that we have filled those vacancies that we have and really focused on direct services while we adjust those contract services. And I would also just highlight that the overall increase from proposed to proposed is about 5%, but overall from our actuals, we're down 8%. And so that will conclude my portion, and I'll hand it off to my partner in good, Mr. Courtney English.
Thank you so much, Chief of Staff, Donald, Mayor, colleagues on the senior team, and of course to you, City Council. It's great, always great to be before you. I just wanted to talk a little bit about where we're going and what you can expect out of this particular budget as the mayor leads the city into the future. Essentially, the mayor's broad strategic vision for his administration is to make Atlanta the best place in the country to raise a child. In order to make that vision a reality, we believe that we have to do a deeper dive and focus on neighborhood health and improving the quality of life inside every neighborhood in the city, but certainly with a focus on those neighborhoods that have been underserved for far too long. Many of you know, as I have had individual conversations with you to do a deeper dive on this particular strategy, that some of our neighborhoods, there's about a 20-year life expectancy gap. For example, between the zip code 30318, where the mayor, where I live, where I went to elementary school, and 30305, where the governor lives, 20 years. That's about a 7-mile drive about a 10-minute drive, depending on whose car. If you're in Councilmember Hillis's truck, you'll get there in about 5. But we have something to say about that. Those kinds of disparate outcomes negatively impact the quality of life for everybody who calls this particular city home. And so what you will expect from us is a strategy that does a deep dive in unpacking and then focusing on bringing the kinds of amenities, the kinds of development, the kinds of resources to those neighborhoods in a way that closes those types of long-standing equity gaps. What you may not know is that we have been working on this strategy for the better part of 2.5 years. In fact, I think of Year of the Youth as nothing more than a pilot program, if you will, where we deployed strategic resources at our most underserved communities, and we saw some pretty tremendous results. Go to the next slide. So effectively, if we just talk about Year of the Youth in year one and then move it forward, we saw some of the lowest levels of crime in the city's history. Of course, we touched 30,000 young people through Year of the Youth. We have since made the largest investment in reducing homelessness. We're down 27% year over year in homicides, down 31% year over year in violent crime. Youth crime alone during Year of the Youth was down 56% and continues in that direction. APS now has the highest graduation rate in its history. We raised and invested $30 million in youth services and nonprofits, everything from mentorship to out-of-school time to early education and a host of other activities, again, targeted at some of our most underserved communities where we saw high instances of violence. We saw high instances of low educational attainment, health disparities, so on and so forth. And by taking this strategic approach, we're beginning to turn around many of those disparate outcomes that none of us, candidly, want to see. Of course, we delivered, we have either delivered or in the process of delivering 11,000 units of affordable housing. We've talked a lot about our credit rating. We've rolled out new blight remediation tools. Of course, we just rolled out new tools for anti-displacement to ensure that we're protecting legacy residents. And we have a historic level of participation from business, philanthropy, social service providers who are participating in what we know to be the group project. That's a long-winded way of saying we believe that this neighborhood-focused approach gets results across a variety of streams of work that we all care about. Moving forward, what you can expect, of course, revisiting the mayor's 4 pillars. Of course, in order to make Atlanta the best place in the country to raise a child, the city has to be safe. And so we're going to continue working with our partners in the fire department, APD, E911, to increase recruitment and retention. We are, of course, going to evaluate and potentially expand our diversion efforts focused on our non-policing efforts just as aggressively as we are focused on our policing efforts to reduce crime. We believe that we not only have to fight crime, but we have to get at the root causes of crime in order to make a better, safer city long term. City Built for the Future, we have unveiled and are currently working with MARTA and transit partners throughout the region, a new transit plan, a new transit vision that we believe will connect and or reconnect some of our most underserved neighborhoods in a way that allows those folks who are living in those areas to be connected to jobs, amenities, and attract balanced growth throughout our city. Our Chief Strategy Officer, working in conjunction with our COO and new Watershed Commissioner, are working on improving and fixing our aging water infrastructure. We know that's critical. Again, getting at the root causes of the city. We love to talk about the potholes that have been filled, but underneath the potholes is a whole lot of water that's not doing what we want it to do. Progress towards Vision Zero to ensure pedestrian safety and continuing to accelerate the deployment of our Move Atlanta Forward bond funds. We talked a lot about City of Opportunity for All. We're going to double down on our efforts to build or preserve 20,000 units of affordable housing, continued delivery of citizen focused services, homelessness, youth, seniors, small businesses, and then, of course, those 2 million folks who are moving to the city of Atlanta have to go somewhere. We want that growth to be balanced and done in a way that, again, protects legacy residents and attract new development simultaneously. We are stalwarts on effective and ethical government. We're going to maintain our AAA credit rating and continue to improve our service delivery. The last thing is ensuring that the city is a model employer, ensuring that we are able to treat our employees fairly, to pay them fairly, to pay them a living wage that allows them to live in the city in which they have served so aptly. With that, I'll turn it over to Chief Strategy Officer Amon.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Atlanta is not only a city in a forest of trees, we are a city in a forest of partners. We have a unique competitive advantage amongst other cities in the number and quality of educational institutions, the number of corporate allies, and the number of civic and nonprofit partners that we have. Not only the number that we have, but the degree to which they are committed to the success of the city of Atlanta and our residents and visitors. This is a competitive advantage that we do plan to take even further, make further use of as we form our 5-year strategic plan going forward. If you talk to religious leaders, nonprofit leaders, community leaders, corporate leaders across the country who've lived in Atlanta and lived in other cities, they will universally acclaim that Atlanta has significant strength here that has helped us get where we are and will help us get where we want to go. You've heard the mayor talk about a whole of government strategy and approach. This is also something that we will be deploying as we form our strategic plan. A couple things to orient you to here. On the left side, we're just displaying the various funds that the City of Atlanta manages. Obviously, the general fund of approaching $1 billion. There are a number of enterprise funds. You add up the funds and the spending and you get to $3 billion. But we have other types of funds. We also have capital funds. We also have assets under management. And so when you look at the totality of assets under management and revenue, you're talking about $12 billion of resources which the City Council, the City of Atlanta government uses. This is, however, a tale of two cities, to be sure. First of all, that $12 billion is spoken for, right? The people who are receiving pensions count on those pension assets, so they are not deployable for anything other than that. And while we have made tremendous progress, if I reflect on the growth of the city's balance sheet and financial position since 2001, when we started looking at it in detail when Mayor Franklin took office, to now, it is unquestionably frankly, a terrific amount better. However, the flip side of that is that we still very much have a very challenged business model. We have a strategically challenged business model. We are one of the few cities in the United States where the city population is only 8% of the metro population. And it's not just about the population, it's about the influx of commuters and visitors that burden the city. And on top of that, we have the costs of the urban infrastructure. We have the density, we have the transit. So we have a very small population and tax base to cover very expensive urban infrastructure. So this is one of the things that this council and this administration will need to wrestle with, especially in the coming years. And so you can expect us to have more conversations about this strategically flawed business model of the city. We need to address that, and the time is now. With that, I will turn it back over to our mayor.
All right, thank you. You've heard from my senior leadership team address where we were, where we are, and where we're going. It's been a large task to get us to this place to where all of these successful stories are here, that we have all of this growth that we're managing together with the City Council, with the Mayor's Office, our CFO. We have a AAA credit rating, bond rating. We intend to keep it. We earned it through hard work. It was a goal to get there, and we achieved it together while also investing in our people. Let's not forget that we brought back a pension. Let's not forget that we did a comp and class study and actually funded it. Let's not forget that we have invested in our people in meaningful ways. Let's not forget that the room that we're sitting in today did not look like this room a year ago. This is Maynard's room, and it looked like Maynard's room until now we have made it a modernized room with new technology. Let's not forget that in this tower, there was rodents, there was mold, there was mildew, there was things that people, air conditioning wasn't working. Our DEEM team has done a phenomenal job. So there's a lot that has been done that wasn't captured on here. But I just thank you all for your partnership in all things that were mentioned and things that haven't been mentioned in the interest of time. So I turn it over to the council for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Mr. Lewis, you're up first.
First time Mr. Shook chose me first. So thank you for that. First time I got to raise my hand first too. So the 8% of the metro area, Mayor, could you expand more on that? I think I've heard you talk about that, but I don't think that people understand exactly what that means. I literally just left for lunch talking about that 8% and the impact in our area, but you can explain it better than me. So can you expand on that? And the reason being is because I think there's some growth in there. So can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Lewis. So the city of Atlanta is only 8% of the population of the metro area, meaning our 500,000 people, as is compared to a growing almost 6.5, 7 million people in metro Atlanta, means that everybody that says they live in it, calls Atlanta home, aren't paying taxes into Atlanta. And so when you have a beautiful attraction like the Beltline that I serve on the board of, and we're almost 85% complete with the construction of the Beltline. So you think about somebody that drove from Cobb County or from Gwinnett or from wherever to go walk on the Beltline. They drove through our city. They utilized our roads that they might have tweeted or texted about, some road thing that they might be happy or unhappy about. They had police protection on that Beltline. They had a fire rescue team that could help them if they were to experience a medical emergency. They had a water department that if they were to go to one of those public water fountains, they would get some water out of it. The Beltline is maintained by the Parks Department, the City of Atlanta's Parks Department. So this individual, every day that comes in here to work, downtown or anywhere, they come into our city, they use our roads, they flush the toilets, and we want the stuff to go down and not up in their toilet. All of that takes city employees and city money. So we have a structural challenge. And by the way, none of us, since 2009, we have not done a tax increase in this city. We have not changed our millage rate. So everybody wants 2025 or 2026 delivery of services off of a 2009 millage rate model. And we added a Beltline, and we've added a Midtown, which is grown phenomenally, and we've added a Upper West Side or whatever new realtors come in and give names to parts of our city. We've added a whole East Side. So you're talking about a city that has all this growth, but we're still only 8% now of the metro area. Once upon a time, we were in the 15 to 20% of the metro area. And so that poses a challenge. How do we continue to support folks that just come into our city, walk along the Beltline or walk in our parks and pay nothing? They can go back home and cause us smog, cause us road, cause us this and that, but not have contributed to our city. I tell you that the 5 of us are property owners in the city of Atlanta. My senior leadership team, every last one of us lives in a home in this city, and we contribute taxes, and we want more taxpayers to be in our city. But we also are looking at how commercial taxes can be captured better, from Fulton County assessor to how we properly appraise commercial properties, and so on and so forth, to how we also charge on the fee structure. Businesses, the business licenses, it was how much was it for business license? It went from, $75. $75 to have the chance of a lifetime to make millions and billions of dollars in the world's greatest city. We're going to change that. It's going to cost you a little bit more to have a business license. It's going to be more towards how much it costs us to manage that business operation permitting. Everything, all of the fees are being looked at right now to see how we can capture the true value that people are capturing from us.
And I would say I would like to be a partner on that. I've been hearing you talk about that citywide, and to hear you, I wanted to hear you respond on it because I haven't had the opportunity to get you to go into it so that people can understand that everybody wants to live in Atlanta. We're going to be able to say you live in Atlanta if you contribute a little bit differently.
That's right.
And so thank you for that, and try not to raise, but also looking at different options to bring it in. 2 years ago, we talked in here, and I mentioned something that you hadn't heard about, and we got it in 24 hours, it felt like. That was the gun lock boxes. And so I've been hearing you talk a lot about the South Side, and one of the ways I think we can improve is CIDs. We need some CIDs on the South Side, and so I think that the way that we can get some of the work done faster, I'm copying off my council member Amir Faroqi, if he's in here. Amir Faroqi, the CIDs are helping the roads and the sidewalks get done a little faster, so I would need your help. And this budget doesn't show it yet, but I know once I tell you, next year budget might show CIDs getting built on the South Side, and that would help us. And lastly, before I give it over, I have a pie in the sky. I know we have a 2,000 public safety officer number pie in the sky. I have a 1,000 DPW employees pie in the sky. So I hear you, and I know we've built more houses, and we're on the verge of building more affordable housing in Atlanta than anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. We are the #1 place in the world to raise your kids. Particularly, that's what we're trying to build, and we have a mayor and a city council in alignment on that. The City of Atlanta job has not grown. And so I was at some of my questions to DPW today. I want to make sure you hear both sides, because I know that this is a very balanced council.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you might hear some folks saying we need to decrease some positions, but I'm making sure you hear loud and clear that the South Side thinks that we need more DPW workers. And we understand overtime means that person was stretched. A person is working overtime because they had to stay late or because they had to come in another time. And so we want to see 1,000. That's my pie in the sky number. I know since 1974, we said 2,000 police officers, and right now we're at 1,700. And so right now, a 1,000 pie in the sky number for DPW would I think, keep our city efficient and effective moving forward, looking at the people that use our city. And so that's my pie in the sky thing, just like the lock boxes were 2 years ago. It's CIDs and 1,000 DPW. I'm gonna say it like I'm from Cleveland Avenue, DPW workers. Thank you again.
I wrote that down. Thank you. I think that's you want the outcome of what the DPW does, which is cleaning up and making sure that we are getting all the illegal dumping that happens a lot of times in the South Side. You're talking about dumping that happens in Pool Creek and South Bend. I know where you're talking about, and we have to go in those areas, and we need a more robust cleanup process.
I appreciate. Oh, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, it's supposed to be loud and thunderous, but I appreciate you actually, because sometimes I don't explain exactly what I want. So I do want the results of the 1,000 workers. I know that the city's grown. People are gonna move here. Yeah. Please move here. We're not full. We building more in Pool Creek, Jonesboro South, Jonesboro North, and Leela Valley on the way. Yeah. And that's gonna be bigger than Pool Creek and Leela Valley. Maybe just as big as Bowen Home and Bankhead Court. It's just quiet as kept. And so, please keep moving here, but that 1,000 work is going to help us keep our city beautiful.
Yeah.
And so that's what I need. I need the beautiful. Thank you again, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Overstreet.
I thought you had a list. Well, thank you all very much, executive officers, for coming to see us today. I really want to first head back to the accolades page. That was actually my favorite page, just so y'all know, because I've been asked so many times lately, what is it that you're most proud of? What can you say that you've been doing, Councilmember Overstreet, along with your mayor, that you are proud of? And I would like to look at that page. I actually lost it, so it's fine, because I remember.
You were almost
back
there.
some more. It's kind of early on, actually. But anyway,
after the page with the big circle on it.
Oh,
Keep going.
thank you. Look at there. Teamwork, group project.
Yes.
I've been asked over and over again, if you have to pick 3 or 4 things off of here, what are your top, what are you most proud of? What are you going to brag about the most? And I got to tell you, that's a hard thing to do. So this is a good problem to have, executive offices.
Yeah.
I just want y'all to know that this, choosing which we're most proud of is just truly hard. I mean, we're the top convention city, which we know every time we turn around, someone else is trying to throw something here, and we're trying to get ready so we can stay ready for the next one, because we're not going to have this issue again when everything that we're doing is about, are we ready for World Cup? Are we ready for this? We're not going to do that anymore, because we're going to be ready. After that $120 million bond, we're going to stay, we're going to be ready for everybody. So, I mean, and then I'm looking at, you know, the park spaces, and that has really made a difference in my district. Just having those green spaces, the newly purchased green spaces, and the upgrade of the ones that are already there, and the futuristic kind of green spaces where now we're having senior facilities coming in. And I mean, we're dreaming it up and making it happen, and that's just huge. And the best place to live, the best place to start a business, cultural excellence, everybody knows about that, because no one is confused about what Atlanta represents. Our children, affordable housing. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. It's hard to stop bragging about the good work that you all have been doing and making sure that our departments are delivering. I am so glad to be on council while we're doing all of this good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think that it is literally transformational for Southwest Atlanta in so many ways. And it is just the South period that, you know, it's so many of us that are from here, and we love to say it, right? And it got to the point where I was like, stop saying it. Because until I see X, Y, or Z, I don't want to hear about how the glory days used to be. And now I feel like we are headed in the right direction, and I'm ready to start saying it again.
Good.
You know, that's where I am. I'm very positive about our future. The budget that you've set forth is really something that we should all applaud ourselves about. We've done a lot of good work, y'all. We have. That's what this shows to me. These last 3 years have been astounding, truly transformational, and I know that's because of the good work that you're doing, and that you're really arming us with the tools necessary to just do anything that we're sitting around thinking of. I thought of a dog park. Oh, hey, let's get that dog park in. I thought, let's put a wayfinding system in Cascade Springs Nature Preserve. Okay, let's get that done. My business community, well, they need you to hold their hand. Okay, no problem. Where are they? That's where we are. That is where we are, and I'm so thankful for that. I said, I'm sick of begging people to put groceries on Campbellton Road. I'm sick of it. Like, it's been a couple years of, no, not a couple, 5 strong years of me begging one entity after another, meeting them in other cities. Please come see Campbellton Road. It has been painful. And finally, here we are. So just good work. And I'm proud of y'all, and I'm proud of us too. So moving on, I did want y'all to know that though. So the budget question that I have in particular is, what is the messaging, well, what's lacking in our messaging where people are still asking me why we have a budget deficit? I just got this question yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that. I'm like, what budget are you looking at?
Right. Oh, that's a good question. So, I'm always surprised at what media, takes interest in, and then what the community finds that they, kind of attach themselves to. You're looking at you and us manage $12 billion worth of activity. You ask us about a $975 million or so general fund, plus you forget that there's $200+ million in reserves. You have a watershed management department, aviation department. You got parks and recs funds. We manage a whole lot more than if you were to hear a number of 20 million to a city that's got $12 billion of management and a AAA credit rating, plus over $200 million in reserves that we built together. After all these investments that we've made, after all these great ratings that you get, to walk around and not talk about a slide filled with 15 bests and tops. Some people will find interest in the potential, from 3 months ago, the potential of a $20 million proposed shortfall. I don't know. I mean, and that's, we got to work making sure that we reduced overtime. We asked departments to make sure that they look at their office structures to see what they could do to, Miss Burks went to work and telling people how they need to get things done. And here we are today. I think you guys should be proud of the budget that these folks are bringing forth to all the departments, including our office. I thank you all for I think you have a 4% reduction in the city council's budget. So everybody is kind of stepping to the plate.
Yeah, everyone's at the plate. And we're going to have another balanced budget like we have for the last few years. So not sure where the deficit conversation came from. It's not a real thing. And I just want to make sure that that messaging is out there loud and clear, that you mandated that we cut our budget 5% in all departments across the board. And for some reason, I don't hear anyone leading with that. And outside of City Hall is what I'm saying. And I'm really proud of that we see the headwinds that are coming or that's predicted to come, and we were able to address some of that, head on. And so that's something that we need to be proud of too. The fact that, we are going to have a balanced budget again this year, and that we did have some real hard conversations about mandates and budget choices that we had to make that we didn't like. Probably can make some more, and we probably will before the final budget is passed. But I just wish the conversations would turn around a little bit, just so that everyone can be on the same accolades page as I am. I'm sad that Mary Norwood isn't here to hear about that, how in the upcoming year, we're going to start talking about the commuter burden that we have in the city. Like, that's one of her strong things that she comes and talks about all the time. I remember having a conversation with her about, bringing in a possible toll again or whatever it takes. But, it's something that I know is important to her. And so I can't wait to, be the first one to tell her about that. But I'm going to definitely lean in and let her know that things are going well. But at the end of the day, we have so many moving parts. I am very proud of the work that we're doing. And I'm looking forward to passing another balanced budget. Thanks for coming to see us today. And with that, I yield.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wan, followed by Ms. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and your team. I appreciate the presentation. I'm going to open just saying that I've been telling my constituents I'm grateful to have had a second chance to be down here working with this council and with this administration. The summary of the accomplishments is great. What I tell people is that unlike my last time on council, I feel like we're all rowing in the same direction. But the difference is we have different techniques, we have different speeds, we have different methods, and that's where I think this process is all about. Let's talk about our approach and how we would, reconcile any kind of differences we have in terms of what our strategies are. So in order to understand the budget request that you have for FY26, I need to understand what has happened in FY25. And so the executive office budgets in 25 versus adopted versus actual is a 33% increase. So we don't have the detail in front of us in terms of the breakout of that delta. And so I don't know if y'all have any high-level explanations aside from the class and comp and the pension. Were there other major factors that caused that significant increase over what we approved from last year?
Yeah, so definitely class and comp and pension is a part of
Sure.
that growth, is one of the larger portions because, of course, our class and comp study touched every single employee, including those in the mayor's office. But in addition to that, some of the other activities still also rest in the mayor's office. And so you would see some of those things that you expect to be touched, let's say in APD and other places that also touch us. We have an emergency management office. And so when you think about some of the overtime or the winter storms for Cora and Enzo, and you think about some of the activities around our water main breaks, even when you look at our response and support of President Carter's services and things of that nature, those things also touch our office and have a part of that driving influence, especially around personnel, which is where you saw many of those costs come from.
The increase is mostly in salaries, not necessarily in purchase services or...
Well, so that's the other part that I was going to mention, and I highlighted that just a little bit when we talked about those areas in which we right-sized for FY26. So we had an increase in animal services, the Atlanta Regional Commission membership, and some of those other areas that we now will no longer carry those citywide costs under the mayor's office. But those increases also touched our office, and some of those contracted services that had to be paid were also through the mayor's office as well.
Okay.
Or the executive offices, I would
Okay,
say.
because I was going to say the service, the personnel side of things, I would imagine most of the people in the executive office are non-exempt, right? So the overtime piece would not necessarily...
Not all. No,
They're not?
not all. Not
okay.
all.
What is the percent breakout,
I
do
have
you
to
think?
get you the percentage breakout,
Okay.
but it is, I mean, I wouldn't call it nominal. I don't think it's, below 3%. We're looking at that. I think we're looking closer to around maybe a 15 to 20%, but I don't want to speak out of turn. I'd rather get you those numbers and come back to you with those.
Okay, that'd be helpful, because even with the 15% non-exempt, overtime wouldn't explain a 33% jump. I mean, and even if you factored out contract services. So the reason why I'm trying to get that baseline is obviously you've talked about how the FY26 budget is only a 5% increase over FY25 actuals. And then, again, just trying to understand how we get there. Your organizational chart and structure, I'm guessing, since we haven't seen a different one that's in the budget book, is not changing significantly from FY. Unlike 24 to 25, we had some significant.
Correct.
Okay,
That's right.
so that's helpful to know too.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about staffing for a second. The chart with this is what I've asked every department this, where your position count by fund the FTEs. So we've got 63 vacant positions, and so I think for us, we're understanding that your total FTE count of 249 includes unfunded vacant positions that you do not, some you intend to fill, and others you do not intend to fill. So if, one of the follow-up things I'm asking every department is to provide that to us, so that we understand of the 63, the actual number that to get you to full staffing is only a portion of that. So if we could get that, that'd be great. All right, so I want to talk about 2026 a little bit. And since I'm on the staffing side, I'll start there. Again, a consistent theme across the departments that are presented so far. We, council, supported wholeheartedly a lot of the decisions in investments last year, including class and comp, pension reform, with the intent of recruitment, retention, right? And I feel like we're starting to see that take hold. It takes a little bit of time, but I feel like we're seeing that take hold. Where I'm not, the question I've been asking is, were those investments successful? And how would we measure how successful they are? Mayor, you mentioned overtime, and that's been something I've been really looking at. And I feel like that's the first indicator of success, is that if we're able to have more bodies, we really, aside from the extraordinary events, we should be seeing that number go down. And we're not across a lot of departments, including executive offices. So I guess maybe your philosophy on, first, what metrics y'all are using to see if the investments we made were successful. Second is, why aren't we seeing, in your department and across the city, why aren't we seeing that overtime number come down?
Well, I want you to answer about the overtime, but I will tell you that recruitment and attrition is a good indicator if you completed the comp and class study and it's successful, as well as the pension. So when we all started 2022, APD was around high 1,500s, almost 1,600, rank and file. Today, we're well over 1,700. We're at about 1,750, on our way to 1,800 probably by the end of this year. To get there, you add recruits and you don't lose people to other departments. We were losing police recruits and fire staff to other departments. That is so far, changed from year one of this team that we have here, year one and year two, actually. So that's one way we're judging it, is our retention of current officers and fire service members, as well as the growth and the attraction of new ones. And that's also the case inside of our team. We don't, in the mayor's office and throughout the city, we're not losing employees now that we have this pension, now that we also have this comp and classes in place, plus the employee bill of rights and other things that we've been doing. That's been very, very helpful. When we stopped about 3 months ago, we said, about 2 to 3 months ago, we said, let's not bring in any new people. We're going to right size and make sure we look at everybody restructuring their departments. Every department needed to restructure. So until we do that and get it all where we want it to be, everybody has to get their new hires approved. First thing was the vacancy review board. Got the vacancy review board to start doing things like making sure justification for any new position being filled. All that has really led to us, really having this place where we're not needing a lot of overtime and we're not bringing on new people. Now, I will say this, going kind of to her question earlier, I get emails every day from people in surrounding governments wanting to come here, but they don't have a job online for them to apply to. I'm getting resumes saying, I want to work for you, and this is my skill set, and I'm trying to leave some suburban or some other county or city around the metro because of what we have here in a pension and in the comp and class. My colleagues that's working for the city of Atlanta are doing better than I am in other positions. So the retention, the attraction is there. So if we were to open back up our recruitment and our asking for people to apply to positions, the job search numbers will go right back up and people will be coming to us. We've been able to manage a lot of things over the past 3 months without really any overtime, if not a little bit. Ms. Burks can talk about that. Her and Chief Schierbaum talk every single morning, and Chief Smith, we've gotten our overtime down substantially. Want to talk about that?
Sure, and thank you, Mayor. So I'll talk about overtime in our office a little bit. I want to provide clarity there before I jump to citywide. And so many of our emergency preparedness staff do qualify for overtime. The other thing that you see in overtime from our office is when we do have warming centers or we do have cooling centers, that is a second assignment number that comes out of our office. So say, for instance, that's how we staff them. That's how we staff the warming centers. That's how we staff the cooling centers. So if you work in contract compliance, no, I'll say you work in constituent service, no, procurement. We're going to take you out of the mayor's office. You work in procurement and you have applied and qualified for a second assignment to help with the warming centers. Your second assignment funding comes out of the mayor's office budget, and it shows as overtime because you're a city employee, even though it's a set hourly rate. So I just wanted to give some clarity there before, I didn't want to leave that. So,
Extra help, though. I mean, I guess, are we actually paying them overtime?
you're paying them a set hourly amount. It's just like your festival monitors. It's called a second assignment number that you have, and all those second assignment numbers are in our overtime line.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It kind of doesn't make sense to me, though, because I think you would just work that into their 8-hour shift, in theory, if you had enough people, staffing at the departments.
Not 24-hour warming centers.
Okay.
So if your warming centers are open, and as you remember, this year we had 2 or 3 days that we had warming centers open. You have to staff them 24 hours. And so if we're still running your regular time during the day and we need your support in the evenings, you're getting paid in that second assignment number.
Okay.
So we still have daily work going on, even though the warming centers may be open. So I wanted to provide some clarity there. And then from a citywide perspective, I think it's just like anywhere else. If people may not be watching and you're allowed to do something, you may do it. And so in some instances, our department heads were not thinking strategically around overtime. But once we realized that we were having way too much overtime, we all sat down together in cabinet meetings, individually with commissioners, to think through more strategically our overtime. And so that's what you hear the mayor talking about. Even with police, you saw their overtime come down drastically. It's because we've been very strategic. When we have events, depending on the size, can we just shift people around versus just automatically going to overtime? And so we have gone to a new mindset now to think strategically around overtime. And as a result, I think you will see that transition into this budget as well.
Okay, I think I was really heartened to hear the chief say that the overtime numbers over the last 2 months have dropped dramatically. And I'm just sensing that strategy and the impact of that has not been baked into this budget. It just, again, there's a little bit of a disconnect, but we can talk about that later. Again, the investments on my side were, because if you have enough people in certain departments, notwithstanding the example you used, Mr. Shook has said, we know these events are coming. So what you do is you just start managing and scheduling your 8-hour shifts so that no one is necessarily working overtime because you have enough people to cover and plan for those special events. So that's fine. It may be kind of on the wing and a prayer that we approve this budget with this overtime figure in it, which again doesn't seem like it's changed much from 2025, and then hope that operationally, as y'all are making these adjustments, the number will come in below that. Okay, and then I'll move on to one last thing, and then I know I got to yield. As we look into FY 2026, we talk about a city built for the future. I think a big part of that is our basics. You've focused a lot on public safety. I think we have to focus on infrastructure. We got a rude awakening last year on water, and I know that there was a water piece of it, but the transportation infrastructure is equally as important. I just got the numbers from transportation yesterday on moving Atlanta forward and Renew, and those numbers are somewhat shocking. For Renew Atlanta, 10 years later, we've only spent, according to the report I got, 50% of those dollars.
You said 10 years later from
Renew Atlanta.
Renew.
We've only spent, according to the report, 50% of that. Moving Atlanta forward, we're in our 5th year. We've spent less than 10% of that. That's a problem.
We
That's
can't
a problem.
be in the 5th year of moving Atlanta forward unless I was mayor
Okay,
before.
sorry. You're 4. Or I'm sorry. Yeah, you're 3. But even in year 3, to have that level of spend is
But 3 is a
concerning.
big difference from 5, though, right?
Sure. Fair enough. Let's go back to 3. It's still a concerning number. And then you've got what I call the World Cup bond, the $120 million on top of that. So I think transportation hasn't come yet. I think we need to make sure that we are equally focused on stepping on the accelerator on those, because I consider that, again, the fundamental services that we as a city need to provide for our constituents. So just wanted to at least highlight that and look forward to the conversation with transportation.
And Councilmember Warren, you and I talk ad nauseum about transportation, right? So I want to push back a little bit on that. Our main focus has been on public safety. Not quite true. I mean, yes, a huge focus on public safety. That is one of our charters. It's what people see and feel every day, right? So yes, there is an emphasis on public safety. But we have made some adjustments in the transportation piece. You'll hear a little bit about those, and you hear some of it during the quarterly presentations. You'll hear a little bit more in the upcoming budget presentation. But this mayor, every week, gets a report from transportation on how we're doing around moving Atlanta forward, as well as Renew Atlanta and watching those projects. We've heard from many of you on the transportation piece. We heard it loud and clear. We're going through a restructuring there as well, which some other departments have done. And I do think, we've changed some of our project managers. You've heard us talk about that for moving Atlanta forward. Atkins was managing both. We shift over to Jacobs. We've seen tremendous growth with Jacobs. One of the things that the mayor charged our chief strategy officer with when he came over was to look at moving Atlanta forward and Renew, see what we can do, some adjustments that can be made, and then, kind of shift it back over to the operation side. So we're doing that together, and we will see a change, but we didn't get there overnight. It took us 10 years to get where we are, and so it won't change overnight. But we're working hard on it.
My apologies. I didn't mean to imply that y'all focused on public safety at the expense of. I was just wanting to lift this other area up additionally for that particular pillar. So, but thank you for your responses.
If I could just add to that on Move Atlanta Forward, I think when you see the figures for April and May in terms of percentage funding and percentage of projects moving into construction, you will see progress. The other thing I would just point out, I think we're all aligned collectively that we want to reduce overtime, and there has been substantial reductions in overtime. I would also point out, though, that when you look at overtime, time and a half, versus regular time, it's not as dramatic a difference in cost, right? Cost to the city of a regular full-time 40-hour-a-week employee is their salary, plus the benefit load of 45%. So it's 1.45 times versus 1.5. And since overtime is not pensionable, when they're performing overtime work, they're not accruing average income credit that's higher. So we certainly want to manage overtime for all the reasons that you suggest, but it's not as massive a gap in terms of cost. And then, of course, you have to take into account that employees are not purely fungible by any stretch. So if you need somebody to drive a sanitation truck, you can't take somebody who drives a sweep sweeper necessarily and have them just hire one more of them and have it all work out. So it is complex.
I think the final thing, I do want to add something about the executive offices when we talk about overtime, because we've seen the reductions in police, and you highlighted that, and that's excellent. But we want to also give that credit to the executive offices. I think our numbers were around 40,000 in overtime dollars, and those have also been reduced down to around 25,000. So we don't want to give a false impression to the public that we've not made those adjustments. And not only have we made those adjustments, we've done so almost doubling the days for warming centers and cooling centers, as well as taking on some of the larger events that have fallen under our emergency management team. So let's make sure that we're clear on that for the edification of the public when we talk about reducing those costs.
That's fair, and we're just going off of what has been presented to us. So,
Understood.
One thing I think is important as well, particularly from a planning perspective as it relates to overtime, too, is we had, because Georgia now is a battleground state and Atlanta's Atlanta, we had 42 campaign-related events. And if we are lucky, we get maybe 7 days on the absolute best of circumstances. Usually it's about 48 to 72 hours, and that dramatically calls for a significant increase in police and fire emergency preparedness service that is hard to plan for. So it's difficult to just shift it out that way.
I get that. So, but that begs the question of FY25, the level of activity and these extraordinary events. Are we anticipating that FY26, World Cup notwithstanding, we're going to have the same level? Because that's what the numbers in here would imply, is that we just think that's going to be our steady state going forward, and that's why we need to continue to fund overtime, or actually increase overtime across all the departments for next year. So I get that, and I think that definitely explains what happened in 25. I'm now looking at 26 going, wait a minute, we invested heavily in employees, and I'm looking for the signs that we're getting our return on that. And
well, remember that some of the employees are going to, the second wave, because we only did the first wave of employees. So some of this includes that.
So right, so there'll be another, you're saying the second wave is included in the FY26 salary numbers? Yeah. So again, looking for definitely justified the investment, just looking for the numbers that signal that we did the right thing. So thank you.
All right, here's the lineup. Collins, Hillis, Bakhtiari, Shipman, and Shook. Ms. Collins, you're up.
Hi, thank you all. So I'll make mine quick because a lot of the conversation question revolved around what Councilman Wan stated. Great presentation. Thank you all so much for painting the overall comprehensive picture of what the executive offices is moving on behalf of the citizens of Atlanta. This goes to Chief Donald. In terms of that breakdown, that would be great just to be able, in looking at your proposed budget slide, just to get a deeper understanding of that $6 million difference from FY 2025 adopted and what you all are projected to spend, but also if there are any, these numbers are based as of the second quarter. We are now in the fourth quarter, so if there has been an increase, it would be great to see what those changes are, just to get an overall picture of what your office actually, of what the executive offices actually need and have. I will be curious just to see if from the personnel and employee benefits, some of the new initiatives that you talked about that are not baked into the other department budgets, just having an understanding of that. I think that just helps me have a more clearer picture of all of the intricacies of the executive offices as you all are implementing the large agenda items, and makes it easier for us to be able to talk about, to Chief English point, where you talk about the increase of, if there's a event that happens and there's an increased need in terms of public safety or fire or additional resources, the natural inclination is to say, oh, well, that will be billed from, through fire services, or that'll be billed through public, the police department. So anything that will help just understand that breakdown will be great, because I am for sure that a lot of the work that you all are doing and have shared the successes of is kind of baked in here. It's just really hard to understand it and to just kind of justify the budget increase. But that's all I have. So thank you so much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mayor Dickens and your team. I just wanted to touch a little bit on, you mentioned it quite a bit, and others have also brought it up, Councilmember Wan, but I feel that we are probably in the best position in public safety, certainly since I've been on council, and I know you served as public safety chair of your time on council, and so you can probably say the same thing. And we've come a long way, and you can see that not only in the crime stats, but we have renewed our fleet. Fire, that's taken some time to come in and build up. Take-home car program with APD, and I can see that, and everyday Atlantans can see that, because we actually see those new cars on the road, but we also see them parked in people's driveways. It's great to see that more and more police officers and firefighters are able to, not just be the courtesy officer at an apartment, but purchase houses in our neighborhoods and see those cars in those driveways. So, we need to keep patting that baby, but much to Councilmember Wan's point, we do need to keep our foot on the gas, even maybe shift into a higher gear when it comes to transportation and enhancements and watershed. We hired a new watershed commissioner, met with him. I think we're on a good path there. Looking forward to taking him out in the district and showing him around. And as was mentioned, they have their presentation coming up, but looking forward to hearing from Commissioner Cavanis and his department on where they are and where they are looking to go in fiscal year 2026. So I just wanted to reiterate, the focus that we really want to see more and more on those two departments. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Ms. Bakhtiari, you're up.
Okay. Thank you. Well, first, thank you all for your presentation, for being here. Wanted to talk about some of the wins that we've had. Chronic drug houses locations shut down, about to do another one next month that Mr. English has been a huge help on. And been able to do a lot actually around infrastructure in the district, Tri-Line Trail, a number of other infrastructure improvements. CEO Burks has been wonderful to work with, and I'm sure I'll see her tomorrow morning on the walk and ride to school because I know she'll be there. I had a couple questions about Director English. I think, actually about some of the staffing. I saw that we went up from 234, I want to say, to 249. And I was curious as to, I mean, colleagues talked about this already, but the breakdowns of each department, how many folks are in Chief of Staff, how many folks are under Office Policy, how many folks are under COO, just to have an understanding of those flow charts, because I believe that there are some members of the staff that I haven't had an opportunity to speak with yet. And I think I saw about 63 vacancies. And I was curious as to where those were located. If anyone could speak to that.
Yeah, and those are, we'll have to break down the general fund piece, but I wanted to just highlight, because there's a difference. We didn't actually go from 234 to 249. On the general fund side, we went from 231 to 234. Those other areas are non-general fund, and those are those contract compliance positions. I wanted to make sure that we clarified that, but we included those to ensure that you had a holistic look at our office. So that's one piece. We don't have an increase from the 234 to the 249 when you're looking at the general fund. I just want to make sure to highlight that. And then, yes, we will make sure to provide, I think Councilmember Juan asked for the same data to break down where within the offices, so we'll make sure to do that post haste.
I appreciate that, thank you. And I was hoping, there's one piece, Director English, or Mr. English. there's a few titles. The Ombudsman's Office, could you speak a bit more to that? Because I think that some of us are struggling because of duplicative efforts and having trouble connecting.
Yeah, so the Office of the Ombudsman is really designed to identify and escalate issues throughout the organization and help troubleshoot those issues. We are aware of some of the concerns, and Chief Operating Officer and I are in conversation about how to streamline some of those efforts. It is most helpful, though, where we identify recurring trends that exist across council districts or MPUs or neighborhoods. We do get a trend report, and we are able, what it allows us to do is to say if we've got issues in MPU A, B, or C, and simultaneously we've got issues in MPU S, T, or R, well, that means we have a larger citywide issue, and it might require a larger policy solution. And so that's really one of the key value adds that we've been able to deploy solutions towards. And so that's the theory behind it.
Understood. Thank you. I would love to talk more about the operating of that offline, just so that we're not, there's been a lot of instances, at least I'll speak from my experience, of duplicating same efforts on projects or issues that are recurring with parks, or say 311, or a number of other things, just so that we're better aligned.
Sure. Councilmember Batiar, I will actually agree with you and probably a few others that I just said this in cabinet on Monday, that we're going to have an internal meeting with every single person in the government that's in outreach. So that means ombudsman, that means neighborhood outreach people, that means the SWEET team, that means HOPE team, every single, let's call them director or senior manager that manages a person that says they're going out and communicating with MPUs, communicating with senior citizens, or all the outreach folks. We have outreach folks in transportation, we have outreach folks in planning, which are neighborhood people, or they're, community liaisons. And we might right-size some of that, or might look at it and say, okay, here's the core messaging, here's how you respond to city council. When a city council person says litter or dumping, does that go to this person, this person, this person? You know what I mean? Or MPU leader says, I have a problem with dumping. Where does that reside, and so we are going to take a real look at that. And that is because we've heard from council members, well, such and such said this and this was there. Not that anybody's in direct conflict, but it's like, how do you streamline it? And so I'm glad you're asking about that, and that's part of our restructuring and looking at how many positions are needed, but also what's the best way to get a proper flow of messaging in and out of City Hall.
That'd be one. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And following up on that, I was curious. I was looking at the cost breakdown over COO and Chief of Staffs, and I noticed that Policy Office, I think, comes in, I want to say, close to $1 million more. I was kind of hoping you could speak to the differentiation in budget. I understand, given because this is the first time an administration has done an office similar to yours, and knowing that Chief of Staff and COO oversee a number of different departments, because I still don't have a full understanding, if you could kind of break down the additional costs for your team.
Sure. So there are a number of items that, let me back up. The office was really created to take a giant step back and deal with long-term intractable issues that are hard to deal with when you're thinking about the day-to-day operations of government. And so when you are pursuing an effort to build or preserve 20,000 units of affordable housing, that requires, candidly, people. Every deal that we bring you all to look at requires vetting. There are architects on my team. There are urban planners on the team. There are people who spend a lot of time looking at performers on the team. And as deal flow increases, we've been thoughtful about adding additional people, particularly to the housing team. The increase, in fact, this budget actually keeps the housing team actually stable, even though we are trying to find a way to accelerate our affordable housing efforts in the midst of incredible federal turmoil. And so we're not asking in this particular budget for more people per se for housing. We're going to figure that out one way or the other. The other piece is that in order to bring more people into the group project, we do feel like we need more hands. So we talked about the incredible accomplishments of Year to Youth. Year to Youth was essentially staffed by one person in its entirety for the duration of Year to Youth. And that's really an impossible thing to put on a single individual. And so there are some positions there that we are asking this body to approve. I think the results, candidly, speak for themselves. We can do more faster for not just our young people. The other piece I would say is that simultaneously, when we look at the efforts to, again, get more people into the group project from a philanthropic perspective, traditionally, that was one person as well. And so we've raised $300 million for an affordable housing fund, spearheaded by a $100 million gift from the Woodruff Whitehead Foundation. This never happened before in the city of Atlanta's history. We've received an unprecedented amount of philanthropic support across young people, youth, affordable housing, workforce development efforts as well. That shot was essentially managed by one individual to do all of that. And so we believe in an effort to, again, accelerate those efforts, particularly as we get into neighborhood-related work, it does justify the addition of one or two more individual people. I got to sing for my supper, just like everybody else in the city. LaShondra Butler-Burks literally approves every single hire at this current point. And I've got to convince her and the mayor that these positions are justified. I will say that considering candidly, the enormous impact that a relatively small team has had on the city, we believe it justifies itself because a lot of particularly as it relates to public safety, a lot of our non-policing strategies have been generated by this particular office and how we have deployed resources. And when you look at efforts around affordable housing and efforts around crime and the amount of money we've been able to raise, the amount of kids we've been able to help, which get at the root causes of many of the issues that folks here care about, it has probably paid for itself a few times over and then some. So.
Thank you for your undetailed and short-winded answer. I appreciate it, and I wanted to also ask some of the initiatives that have been started, freeing up properties that have these title issues, all of these things that are kind of low-hanging fruit, and starting these initiatives with the solicitor's office and as well as obviously our municipal court system. They're wonderful concepts, and we know that getting something built and system building is very difficult, as COO and all of you have to deal with every single day. I think that we have the team and the ingredients to make it happen. My direct question is, have you found that the solicitors, some of these offices are able to support your work? Because your team, as we know, democracy is only effective if every branch is doing what it's intended to do. And I know that y'all are attempting to influence this, and I'm curious as to, do we have things that we need to assist or question more in terms of making sure that these really innovative concepts, which we need because of a diversity of tactic during this time, living through history, how do we ensure that we get these over the finish line?
So I'll say I want to revisit your earlier comment. I try to go division by division, actually, and person by person. So if there's a greater degree of detail that you want or need, I'm happy to provide that. But what that breakdown I gave you literally represents all we're asking, all this office is asking for in terms of increase. And so that's one. Two, I'll say, so the goal is to essentially catalyze innovative ideas across those various degrees of work streams, and then give that back to operations or the chief of staff's office. And so we're in the process of doing some of that. Housing Help Center comes to mind, which I can talk about in detail. As it relates to your specific question around solicitors, I do think we are making a lot of progress on blight remediation. We'll be bringing to council in relative short order our first series of properties for blight tax and blight condemnation. Blight condemnation, it does require additional resource that we're going to launch it as effectively as a pilot where we already have money. In order to sustain that work, though, it is going to have to live somewhere else, not necessarily in the mayor's office. And so we are thinking through what that proper handoff looks like. As it relates to do we have enough resource to quote unquote meet the need ultimately? The short answer is what I will say. The answer around that question isn't necessarily a budget question at this juncture. The need in Atlanta, particularly as it relates to housing, is tremendous. We launched a Housing Help Center 2 years ago. They have served 10,000, received 10,000 applications. On average, they get 137 applications a week, providing, they help keep 538 folks in their homes, and that's not nearly enough. But providing rental assistance alone is not necessarily a sustainable solution. We are looking both internally and across the country at policy solutions that will help plug that hole. We know there are 12,000 or so evictions that have been filed throughout the city of Atlanta. There are about 20,000 or so people on an affordable housing wait list at Atlanta Housing. And so just that area alone represents tremendous need, and there are 5 people in the Housing Help Center, right? And so, no, the short answer is not enough, but consistently throwing money at rental relief also is not necessarily the most sustainable solution. We have thoughts on what that looks like, and we just need a little more time to work it out.
Understood. To that piece, and thank you for that tremendous work. Like I was saying, Donnell Woodson and Carla Wells and that team, I can't say enough good things about them. And also, I don't know where Donnell shops, but he makes working with people also look good, because
It's that pension money. There's that extra model employer money he's getting.
But the additional question was, because of the programs that you are discussing, there has been so many, as there should be. The breakdown in staffing that's being asked for, like, that would be wonderful. Also having an understanding of budget in terms of, like, you know, what this person's doing in terms of information gathering around, I don't know, Zillow or Redfin, or this over here around the Housing Help Center dollars and the Eviction Defense Program versus AVLF, and like what we're doing around COC. If there could be a breakdown of those operations to better understand. Because to your point, Housing Help Center, you have 5 folks, we're talking about relocating the office, having an understanding of what they're dealing with to better ask questions, to see how, you know, to better show up, would be really helpful, because I would say your office is I mean, the work that you're doing is my biggest priority and why I ran. So to better understand would be super helpful. And so I thank you for your work. And the last thing I'll ask, which is a personal thing that's not necessarily budget, and then I'll let, well, Howard's looking at me with so much, yeah, I'm getting the signal to hurry it up. So my last question is, I know that there has been increases. I know we're going to be living through unprecedented times. I know that with the changes in district lines, each of us are getting changes, and there hasn't been so much of an increase for resources, and that we are talking about taking cuts on this side. We all have to. Understood. I know for me, I will have between 20 and 25 neighborhood meetings starting next year. I know that each of us has greater responsibilities as things are changing, and so I ask, just working with finance, the money man has heard this request from me several times, if there's a way to just look at potentially increasing resources for folks here so we can better support our staff. And thank you to finance for what we worked on in terms of making sure that we are meeting a certain standard of pay, but just also just allocating for inflation and other things that we're trying to do throughout the district so we're not overly burdening COO constituent services and other things just because we are so forward-facing. And COO, you've listened to me on this before, and I thank you for that. If there's just an opportunity to come back to the table and discuss it, maybe not in time for this, but moving forward this year. And I am done.
Thank you. President Shipman.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. I know that everybody's been here for a while, and there have been a lot of questions covered. I wanted to start back at FY22. I would add one box to what was happening when this council and this administration arrived, and that was that there were just a lot of areas of the government that weren't working. You and I knocked on a lot of doors, and we saw a lot of leaves in front of people's houses, and they would tell us how long they had been there on the curb, not picked up. 911 wait times, we talked about this the other day, were just unacceptable on a national standard. We saw our parks not in the shape that we wanted them to be in, and permits were slow. I don't know how many emails I got the first 6 months I was here about permitting. In FY22, we inherited, in essence, a budget, council and mayor's office. Since then, the CPI, according to the federal government, has gone up 14%. The proposed budget this year is 33% higher than that FY22 budget was, which means we're making real investments, more investments in the city. And I think that the presentation shows you get what you pay for. Right. And to some extent, this is a theory of government. I think that while we talk a lot about nonpartisan, this is a democratic theory of government. You make investments and you get returns. And I think that that's what we've seen. And so I've made this comment in a few of the presentations that it feels like that there's been a lot of increases in things. We've put a lot of money into X, Y, or Z, police, fire, affordable housing, whatever. But the truth is we've seen things come out of that. And the growth in a lot of the departments has been in line with just that general growth of revenues and spending. So I wanted to start there because I think it's important. Yes, part of it is management, part of it's investment. We've actually put real money, more than inflation, into these areas. I want to ask a couple of questions about the particulars of this budget and then a couple of broader questions. One, this budget contemplates a 20% reduction between FY25 projections on the personnel line and the 26 proposed budget. Do you think that the executive office will be at that run rate when FY26 kicks off? Are those changes going to be all implemented by the time we get to the start of the year? I don't know who wants to take it, but.
I think it's fair to say that we believe that's what we're working towards, and we believe we'll be at that point. I think you've seen the Vacancy Review Board, and that, of course, impacts our office as well. We've made some strategic cuts and some strategic decisions, but also what you have to look a little bit closer at is even some of the personnel decisions that we've made. When you look at our transition from extra help to full-time employees, I mean, I think we've kind of right-sized to make sure that those full-time employees remain that and those extra help positions go away. And so all of our adjustments are made to stay on and within budget. And I think moving into FY26, we're on par to do that.
So I think I would just sort of underline this point, and I asked COO Burks this the other day, how many are you trying to get to and how many have you gotten to already? How many are still remaining? I think part of what happened moving into FY25 is that we basically had an expectation of where we thought staffing was going to be. We had opportunity to get staffing to a different place, and that ended up at a different expense level. What I think, at least I'm a little nervous about, is if we don't get all the way to the FY26 run rate, by the time you start the year, you're in a hole from the first day, right?
That is we've talked about that quite a bit.
And it's just, right, it's just math. It's just management math. And so if there are things that council can do to support that, then don't be shy, and please try to get to that run rate. Because if we start the year at a run rate that's 5% higher, it's just harder to dig out of that hole. especially to what I'll get to in a minute, which is the economic environment, which is probably not going to be in our favor going forward. Just a couple of things, and I appreciate, Mr. English, your commentary around you have to invest in people to spend dollars well, especially around affordable housing. Is there anything in this executive budget or in the overall budget, maybe we just haven't seen, around management of World Cup resources? Are we investing in some personnel to manage World Cup? And is that here or someplace else?
You want to talk about yesterday as well?
Yes.
Yeah, last 2 days.
Last 2 days. So I will say there is some of the resources, actually, you probably saw in this fiscal year's budget around the management of World Cup. So we have hired, maybe one person or two in my office who's kind of serving as the point person for World Cup. Last fiscal year, Chief Sherbaum created a new division, which was around, you have Deputy Chief Hampton, you have Major Schiffbauer, and a few others who has been their specific job duty, was to really look, and that was a new division that was created in FY25 budget. And so one of the reasons you're probably not seeing a lot of new resources in this one is because we put them in the last years and they're moving steady in order to do some planning. So I'll give you one example. The last 2 days have been filled with World Cup meetings in 3 or 4 different ways. One, you've heard about Showcase Atlanta and how we're moving forward with that one. That has now become a 501c3. And so there's fundraising going on around Showcase Atlanta in order for us to move that forward for Showcase. The other side is we also had a meeting yesterday with all of the public safety agencies pretty much in the state of Georgia, but definitely in the metro area and the FBI. And that meeting was hosted, a room full of people from Verizon to DHS, anybody who is impacted by World Cup. We're working on mutual aid agreements, and so we have a team that's working on that. So I say there's a lot of work going on. And we also met with labor unions yesterday, who we've been engaging with them and making sure that we're holding everybody's feet to the fire as it relates to World Cup and labor. So the staff that we need are in place right now, and any additional staff will come through the fundraising that will be done. But you will, so I don't want to, so that it kind of goes to the fact that everybody's saying, have you been planning? Have you been doing any work? But yes, there's been a lot of work going on, but that work started in this fiscal year. We're not just starting it in next fiscal year.
That's helpful, thank you. And then, Mayor, you announced a big transit vision a couple of months ago. I'm wondering if there are people dollars in the executive office budget and or perhaps it's an ATL DOT or et cetera. Are there investments that we're seeing in FY26 regarding that transportation planning? And just for context, sorry, I asked CEO, you probably saw CEO Kali Greenwood yesterday, if there were any dollars in his FY26 budget, and he said no because the formal process hadn't gone through yet. Right. So I'm just trying to level set where we are.
Yeah. So, some of this is related to the Beltline. Yep. So obviously, the goal of having transit on the Beltline is a mayor's office, DOT, and Beltline joint, ambitious goal. And that will be facilitated by the work that we're doing with the Beltline, and some of those dollars are already allocated inside the Beltline's plan for transit, as well as to actually implement these things. There's going to be new revenue sources, whether that's a TAD, whether that's some other kind of structure that we use. So it's not a new general fund set of expenses that we anticipate.
That's helpful. So here's the money question, no pun intended, that we're wrestling with on this side. Do we think we're going to have a recession? And if so, how deeply? My question to you all, and whoever wants to answer it, does this budget anticipate a recession?
We have been conservative around the spending side of this budget, despite maybe some of the questions that you may have had. We could spend more. There's so much more need out there. We're trying to do as much as we can and be able to manage it as well. it's just only so much you can do at the same time. You got to dig up the road to put a pipe in it. You got to wait on it to get finished. You got to, pave it, et cetera. And at the same time, you're trying to do the sidewalks on that street, put lights on that street. I mean, it's a lot to do, especially if everything's a complete street project that we've signed up for. To be able to do all that, we have looked at it on managing the expenses as much as possible. While I've watched council teeter on whether or not we were going to be in a recession for 3 years, it seems like y'all have been, looking for this to come our way. And each year we set these modest revenue increases, and then we overshoot the revenue increase by 20, 30%, all because we're afraid of a potential recession. And then, we got a new presidential administration federally, and we have all the concerns that have always been there of, oh my God, we're about to have a recession. And yet we end up having higher reserves, we have higher, revenues, and we get more stuff done. And then we come back to budget time and we say, it's another recession. So I'm in my 4th time hearing be very afraid. So we're being moderate, we're watching things, but, and we're managing them on the expense side. On the revenue side, however, the number is what the number is right now. I think we're going to be muscular about our business license revenue. I believe that there are businesses in this city that are not paying at all, and they're not paying their true cost. We are going to spend some money in dealing with that so we can gain some money. We have a diversified, and this is all general fund conversation too, by the way. This is just general fund.
Understood.
Yeah, it's because we got a lot of other sources of revenue. But on the general fund, we have business licenses, commercial real estate, property taxes, residential property taxes. I think that there's a robust set of conversations around what we do with Fulton County and making sure that we get the proper tax assessment. It may be with federal grants, we are concerned. That's where my biggest concern comes from, is federal grants. And then what does that mean for projects that are federally funded and people still want to see them go forward, even though there's no revenue stream attached to it? Do we just pull it from reserves? Do we try to pull it out of some mayor's office fund because people are like, oh, we still need that thing that was federally funded if the federal government gets flaky on us? But lucky for us, we have a diversified revenue stream, and we have a lot of sales taxes, property taxes, and business taxes, and all that's going up. We was Showcase, just to give one example. We've never seen what a very bona fide program around capitalizing on every dollar that's going to happen during an event. That's what Showcase is doing. So our revenue upside during the World Cup, we are trying to take it from what was a projected $500 million to $1.5 billion. And that's by doing things like trying to get people to stay one extra day. If you stay one extra day, that revenue is tremendous. And that's just a targeted thing to do. And where we get them to spend the money inside of the city, that then brings us more revenue. So we're extremely focused on making investments that lead to additional revenue that you can't see here, because on the revenue side, you're capped because of what's that law that we had, and we can't go above a certain number from last year. But every year we go way over that number per year. Y'all should probably do something about that because it's just silly at this point. But anyway, that's my response.
No, that's fair. And I think I just want to underscore one point there that you said that I think is important. If we get into a situation where you have to enable more cuts, I know you have a 10% plan, a 15% plan, that's the responsible thing. There might be a easier path to say, let's do it across the board. Certain departments create revenue. Certain departments create more impact than others. And so I know that sometimes on council, we have our own pet projects, we have our own pet departments, we have the own things that we think are important, but I think in this scenario, you're exactly right. That it's going to be important if we get into an expense management even further, that we are doing return on investment sorts of views in addition to fairness, right? That at least that's a component of it instead of just saying, let's go 5% or 10% across the board. Because you're right, there is a lot of revenue baked in. Which leads into just two other things that I want to briefly say. Mr. Amon teed it up, you just talked about it as well. You and I have talked about it privately. This is one I'm going to bring out in the public. We do really have to take the political step to think about revenues. We have to do it. The Finance Department did their projections, 5-year projections, as part of their presentation. In FY26, property taxes are 39.8% of the total budget. In FY30, they are projected to be 47.4% of the total budget. Those are our residents, but as Mr. Amon absolutely correctly said, we are only so many residents serving a whole lot more people that want to enjoy our city, and every tax dollar that's spent in our city, more of it goes to the state and the county than comes to the city. I know you know that. Yes. I'm not sure the public knows that. And so there is a vested interest in making sure that our residents aren't the only ones that are paying for all of these things, but we have a balanced approach. That's not easy for anybody on this council to talk about revenue. It's not easy for you and your team to talk about revenue, but we have to talk about revenue. We have to talk about it, or we're going to end up in a situation in 4 or 5 years where it is even more disproportionately on the backs of our residents and their property as opposed to anything else. I want to underscore that because I'm not going to be here that much longer.
Thank you for that. Well, since you're only going to be here a little while longer, I'm going to give you a bigger
I'm more than happy. And then one other, that's fine. And then one other thing that we've talked about, and I just want to underscore it as well, especially as the federal government pulls itself back, we have to go to our state partners who we have good relationships with, and we have to say, what is the correct role for the state vis-a-vis municipalities? Because again, the state gets an enormous amount of upside by Atlanta being healthy. I think they realize that more than maybe they have in the past. But I think that this is the time to have the conversation to say, these are the ways that you as a state body can help make sure that Atlanta thrives. And with Atlanta thriving, the state's going to thrive. Those two things are connected. So I know that neither one of those are necessarily easy, but you don't have an easy job. You do a good job doing it. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, President Shipman.
Thank you. We've gone over, but this is, the most important budget presentation in any given year. So I'm just going to wrap up with just a couple general thoughts. Yes, we're the worry department. That's kind of part of our job, actually, as keepers of the purse. Plus, my excuse is I was here in 2008. The world's divided into two cohorts, those who were and those who were not. So I sleep with one eye open, ever since then, in general. So in any given Atlanta budget, any given year, the budget's a direct, the direct genetic offspring of its parent budget, which in this case is FY05, 25. We now know, looking back at FY25, it was overheating before it had backed out of the driveway. Now, the good news is they caught it real early. The bad news is because we're on this quarterly reporting schedule, we found out December 10th. So there have been discussions that are beginning with the CFO, with some people on your team and internally here, to see if we can devise some way to be more active partners on a real-time basis going forward. Whether that's monthly, I don't know. But I mean, we can't passively, await the next quarterly report. We're in just such an era of incredible instability. So hopefully, y'all will be open to working something like that out. I'd like to see the Vacancy Review Board made permanent until further notice, and some other morale-building steps we can take. So those are my thoughts, and we appreciate, as always, y'all being here, and we appreciate the accessibility of your team.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I've taken that note. Vacation, I keep saying vacation review board. Can you see where I'm trying to go? Vacancy review board. I think that's a good thing to keep on an ongoing basis. So let's try to structure that in, and then some sort of mechanisms that gives you some heads up versus quarterly. Some type of thing. We can come up with something that's not quarterly. Thank you all. I took notes. We all took notes. We can have more dialogue. I hope that you heard here that a few things. When we all came in, polls were done, and the polls said the number one thing that people were most concerned about was violent crime. Was crime. Number two was gun violence, which I thought was same as violent crime, but it was crime and then gun violence. You can look at the poll on our first couple of months and during the time we were running for office. And then third was affordable housing, and then fourth was like transportation and other stuff. Well, luckily, the thing that we worked on most, which was crime and gun violence, is not number one anymore on any poll. It's not even number two anymore. It is, there's always going to be a concern about crime, so it's never going to drop to number 10, but it's number 3 now. What is still up there is affordable housing affordability. People just find it tougher and tougher to live in this economy. And then number 2 is transportation, public transportation. I am very acutely listening to council as you say, we've done a great job together on crime, people, and how people feel lags the actual data. Now we're in a city where the data and how people feel about it are good around our numbers and our crime movement. So that means we've really done our job. But we have to make certain that we continue to invest in our infrastructure. People won't give you the chance to invest in your infrastructure if there's a crime, a murder that's happening every day, that's all on the news. If people are feeling that they're unsafe, you won't get these investments into your city. You won't get these businesses to come here. You won't get a chance to do a bond because folks will feel like your city is unsafe or unstable. So I think the AAA credit rating is goodwill and good work that the CFO and team has done. It's good about how we pay bills, but it's more so about people are saying, oh, we're on the right track to be a healthier city, a safer city, and one that is ready for what comes next. And I thank you for your partnership in that. I took a bunch of notes, let's keep getting at it, and I hope that we are actively between Ms. Burks and her deputy COOs, as well as Theo Pace and others, are watching and being participatory in all of your other budget meetings. So as you have stated, you're going to be talking to DOT and others. We're right there. We'll take those matters to heart. We'll come right back and make the adjustments necessary to do what needs to be done. So we appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Is it still more fun to be over there than it was for you to be back here?
It's more fun, but I can tell you one thing has changed. I can't see as well anymore. I have to wear glasses now because I do so much doggone reading now as mayor. It's a hard job, but it's easy when I got a good set of team here and over there. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. All right, Department of Labor. Bring us home. I think now we are ready.
My name is Theresa Austin Gibbons. I'm the interim commissioner for the Atlanta Department of Labor. And to my right, we have our deputy commissioner of federal programs, Ms. Sonia Wilson Westmoreland. To my left is Dr. Walker. She is the deputy commissioner for administrative services. And to her left is Ms. Umeda Embry, who is our labor relations manager. Today, we're going to go over the Atlanta Department of Labor and look at some of the things that we have accomplished, as well as how we're going to look forward. As you can see, our organizational chart, and myself at the top as the interim commissioner, the two previous ladies that I just explained on the next level, and then we have our third level of individuals that are in our organizational chart, and Dr. Walker will talk a little bit later about how these positions are sparsed out. As every department here in the city of Atlanta, we are always following the mayor's 4 pillars. One Safe City, which focuses around our summer youth employment program, which assists with crimes, because when you have youth working during the summer and you keep them off the streets and their hands are not idle, they're busy, it gets the crime rates down, as we'll talk about a little bit later. And then a city of opportunity for all, working with our workforce and training programs to ensure that our workforce is trained up with appropriate skills to have the great careers moving forward. A city built for the future. We are also looking at trainings that are green, so those are sustainable, and that also falls into that pillar, as well as our effective and ethical government that we'll talk about a little bit later, something that we've done over this past year. Our year in review, we secured $676,000 from the Annie E. Casey Foundation and the Arthur M. Blank Foundation, and this was to help with career readiness and job placement. The Annie E. Casey was for 18 to 24-year-olds, and the Arthur M. Blank was 18 to 30-year-olds in the Vine City and English Avenue areas. This past year in 2025, thanks to Ms. Sonia Wilson Westmoreland and the federal program staff, we received a clean audit that is held annually. We looked back a couple of years, back I think as far as 2014, and we had over 30 findings. So to have a clean audit for federal WIOA is something to be commended. We launched our labor rights employment program, Ms. Umeda Embry. That was her goal, to work on labor practices and ensure the residents and businesses were well informed of the rights and the obligations when it comes to labor education. She further, alongside the mayor's office, provided the Employee Bill of Rights. This was a guide to educate the City of Atlanta employees on their responsibilities and their rights during any third-party investigations. Currently, in 2025, we had 175 ITAs, and those are individual training accounts. So if you think about a check, you get a check for $10,000 over a 2-year period to go through training in any of these programs, such as project management, medical or dental, and ITA and CompTIA, to ensure that the residents are trained in fields where they're going to have a livable wage. Out of that, we have 325 WIOA placements. This is when individuals come out of these ITAs, they go directly into employment, and that was a 20% increase from last year. We've placed more than 132 job seekers in meaningful employment with the funding that was given to us by council this past year, with an average weight of those individuals, residents, receiving at least $22 an hour. We placed more than 5,700 participants between the ages of 14 and 24 in summer jobs this last year. In the last 3 years, we've placed over 14,000 since 2022. Our look ahead, we are going to officially launch our Atlanta Signature apprenticeship programs for youth, adults, and dislocated workers. And those are individuals who have lost their job to no fault of their own due to layoffs or other reasons. We will fully integrate the $676,000 that we received through our philanthropic funds with Annie E. Casey, as well as the Arthur M. Blank Foundation with programming through permanent employment alongside the Summer Youth Employment Program. Through the LRAP program, we've educated 250 new businesses of labor rights, or we will educate 250 new businesses on their labor rights and their responsibilities during our initial pilot for 2025. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Walker, who is going to walk you through our org chart and our head count.
Good afternoon. I'll call our attention back to the organizational chart that Interim Commissioner Austin Gibbons provided an oversight of a few moments ago, just to give some context regarding our staffing structure and the operational structure for our department. Our department, as she mentioned, is comprised primarily of 3 teams. The team that existed prior to the department existing is the federally funded program, and they continue to provide career services, employment training, on-the-job training, and related services to reduce the barriers to employment. In addition to that team, we have our locally funded programs. The signature of that would be the Summer Youth Employment Program, but it will also include apprenticeships and the Mayor's Youth Leadership Program and other things that we can do to expand our reach to participants that may not fall neatly within the eligibility criteria for the federal programs. And then lastly, the third team would be administrative services, which is the housekeeping, if you will, the budget, the personnel, the human resources, and like services. The slide that you see here, the table on the slide that you see here primarily highlights the locally funded positions, and I would like to provide a little detail and clarity regarding some of the numbers and the questions that you may have regarding what you see. We have more vacancies on this chart currently than we do filled positions, and that's a little bit of a misnomer. At the time that this data were pulled, the vacancies included extra help positions, and we are currently filling those extra help positions with full-time positions. So at the close of this budget season, hopefully if everything goes as planned, then the majority of those will be filled. And then we've had 2 vacancies that have resulted in staff turnover, and we're actively working with human resources to fill those positions as well. So a couple of months from now, if we were to revisit this same chart, we anticipate that it will look a lot different than it does now. And then I just have notes there to include, again, context that the majority of the positions in our department are federally funded, either completely or partially, and some positions are filled with trust fund funding as well. The last slide that I have here kind of gives an overview of our budget, and I know it's not as extensive as some of the ones that you have seen before, but what I'd like to say is that we, again, rely heavily and lean heavily on the federal funding that we have, and I think the concept of this department is really unique in that it builds upon that existing federal funding and expands it to what we know is a greater need beyond that eligibility, right? And we've done well with marrying those services and using our existing staff and giving a little local funding percentages to some existing staff so that we're not limiting those staff members' ability to do extra work as well on behalf of the citizens. The one thing that you'll notice here on the budget is a reduction in our contractual services from last year to this year. We've done more and we've worked harder to provide some of our services and do a lot of the legwork in-house. So we project that we'll need less contractual services this year going forward than we had this current year. And we instead need to augment our personnel line item in order to cover staffing. So that's that reduction.
So that concludes our report. Have any
All right, thank you. Mr. Wan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. So I'm curious then what your total budget is once you factor in both the general fund money as well as the federal and other grant-funded positions or funded operations.
So let me answer kind of two ways, right?
Yeah.
The short answer is we receive about $3.5 million in federal funds,
Okay.
and then the $1 million in general funds. So that's my solid answer. We do have some trust fund money, and that number is fluid because it will carry over from one year to the next. So it was $2 million at the start of last fiscal year, and we used some. We're still using some.
Okay. And the Annie Casey money goes through the trust fund, or does it go?
The Annie Casey money will go through the trust fund,
Okay.
and it is limited to the project that they described for permanent employment placement for, and ideally, SYEP participants who are eligible for or interested in permanent employment. So that'll be that leg.
Got it.
And then we have the other grant through the Arthur Blank Foundation, the PACE grant, for their specific project. Theirs is even more limited. It's a really good program, but it's more limited because it covers certain zip codes.
Sure, that makes sense. So, I mean, 75% of your budget is federally funded. Concerns about federal environment right now, and what happens if, heaven forbid, the decision is made in D.C. that the programs that fund this are scaled back? How much flexibility do we have to pivot with your team in that scenario?
Well, because our WIOA funding runs through a 2-year cycle, we've already received our anticipated funding for the next 2 years.
Okay.
Or not, we haven't received it. We've been given some allocations that potentially would be based on the budget from the administration. So, there's
That's
always
good.
that concern, but that's every year when it comes to the federal funding.
Okay, and what's the final step in terms of, you got the indication, but what's the final step in terms of confirmation and certainty that that 2-year funding will be set? I'm just anxious about any government funding right now, whether it was, some agencies have signed contracts that are now getting rescinded. So what else, what's the next, at what point do we feel, we're good for 2 years?
Well, that's a...
When the money's in the bank, right?
Yeah, essentially. Essentially, the state of Georgia, the agency, the Technical College System of Georgia, provides that indication, the projected allocations to us, and we have received that. The monies for this particular, not to go too far in the weeds, but the money for this particular grant is allocated or actually dispersed in 3 waves. The first wave is around now for the youth funds. The second wave is July for a small bit of the adult and dislocated worker money, and then the remainder comes in October for adult and dislocated workers. So we'll breathe a little more easily each time.
That's good, though. I mean, within a short period of time, we'll have a lot more certainty. So, okay, that's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Your budget is remarkably straightforward, and I don't think any of us has any additional questions. And so we're going to let you all get back to work, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
To the this process will resume 9:30 Tuesday morning. See you all then. Oh, we'll be back in council chambers, knock wood. All right, with that, we're adjourned.